why can't games just be good anymore? Like, let's be real, games are getting worse and worse every single year. Well, actually, that's not quite true, is it? We want to talk about some of the best games that we've played in 2022, not necessarily released in 2022. My name is Eljay with the Stream Room Podcast, and I'm here with the boys.
Da boys, hello, I am Reapz, another one of your co-hosts today, talking about sweet-ass games that came out in 2022.
Just we played.
Just
not released.
played it 2022.
Yeah. And I am third boy, Nicktacular. Hello. What's going on?
Hello.
Good morning.
Hey, gang. What's crack-a-lackin', boys?
Oh, mate, it feels good, huh? We've all had our coffees or some sort of caffeine sustenance, and I'm ready. I'm ready to
I
roll.
want caffeine. I take coffee beans.
Yeah.
And I insert them into my anus.
So like a
And then-
suppository?
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
okay.
over a couple hours, it slowly breaks down, and I absorb it. And then because of the way the coffee works, instantly, boom, take a crap, sorted.
That's like a stream scheme tip that will be coming out. If you want to go long hours grinding on streaming, just use the caffeine suppository and stick it right up there.
You know,
That
it's funny.
is
Most of the
ingenious.
pieces of advice that I would give to someone trying to get into World of Warcraft raiding, I would also give people trying to get into streaming.
Well, what's that?
Get ready for long hours.
Okay.
Stay hydrated,
Mhm.
and make sure you shit inside a sock, and then put that beside the table.
Have you seen the South Park episode where they all play World of Warcraft?
Yeah.
That to me is quintessential gaming / streaming.
I've only seen 3 episodes of South Park because I didn't watch it as a kid because my mom thought it was just vulgar. And it was the WoW one because I'm a massive. If anyone doesn't know, I was a massive WoW nerd until Blizzard.
Dark times.
long ago.
and then I've seen the one where Randy tries to take the world's biggest poo.
Oh, yeah.
Such a good
Yep.
episode.
That's a good one too.
That's a great one. When you mentioning the coffee bean in the butt, I'm thinking of the South Park episode where they develop a new dietary form of consuming food, and there's
that's
people
right.
shoving full meals up their butt,
Their ass.
like a full-on
and
chicken.
they poop out their mouth.
Yeah,
classic.
yeah,
it's
Oh,
just-
fuck.
I know we're supposed to talk about gaming, but have you guys heard of butt chugging?
Yes, I have heard of butt chugging. I've not seen it, but I've heard of it. And it
do I
scares me.
wanna
You
know?
can't see it when he does it because you can't see up there.
Well, it's quite the thing. Just imagine like a big old hose, Nick, and
It could also just be the end of the bottle.
could be. Yeah, that's true. But basically, obviously, where would you put said bottle hose for butt chugging, and then your butt chugs said
Say
beverage?
it. Where would you put it, Reapz? Say it.
Nick doesn't know, so let's see what Nick's got to say.
Why are people pooping in bottles is
Well,
what
because, okay, so same reason that people rub cocaine on their upper lip, right, or inside there, is because it's really thin lining to get towards the blood supply. So when you put it in your butt, it's way, way, way quicker for people to get drunk off, and it's like a way different type. It's not a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I don't think anyone should do it. And it's just part of it. But apparently, apparently it was like a thing people did like years ago, and now it's also a TikTok trend.
Can we?
Man, I'm glad I just stayed home and played games and didn't go to parties.
Let's comment below if you've butt chugged. Give us a like if you've butt chugged. And by the way, a complete aside, and we can get back to this topic. But speaking of butt chugging, what comes to mind? Oh, the fact that we finally reached 1,000 subscribers
Yes!
on the YouTube. I literally, on my stream on Twitch, I went over and I was like, because I was like, oh, new podcast out today, everybody. And it was at 999 subs. And I was like, yo. So I dragged the window into my stream and I was like, who wants to be the 1,000 sub, right? And then as soon as I did that, it went up to like 1,010 or something like that. But I've clipped it. I put it probably maybe at the beginning or the end so people can see it live. But to everyone out there who butt chugs, who followed the channel, who liked and comment, thank you so much for getting us to 1,000. We have plans of doing a live podcast stream on obviously the Stream Room YouTube.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it, to be honest. Although I'll have to make sure that I don't say all these horrible things that I normally make Reapz cut out afterwards.
Yeah, we lose like an hour of recording from all the
record
rants.
for 6 hours. Yeah, I've got to cut it down to 2.
It's a hard knock life out here for a man who's just trying to like give some opinions that people don't want to hear.
Very true.
Speaking of opinions that people don't want to hear, I came up, this is on topic with the actual podcast today now.
Okay.
So I was on Twitter, which is always a bad start to a story.
Okay.
I was on Twitter and I kept seeing all these tweets of people complaining about fucking some streaming bullshit, or they'll be complaining about like something or taking themselves really, really seriously. And I thought to myself, man, I know I can be like that sometimes, but I want to tear my eyeballs out by reading these people be so serious all the time and just take themselves so seriously all the time. I used to love just self-deprecating, being the butt of the joke and just fucking around and not caring what happens, right? And I think streaming in a weird way, one of the reasons I grew early on was because I was like that. And then I got too serious because of like Stream Scheme and stuff. And so I just thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to start trolling. So I tweeted out, look, Stray was a good game, but anyone actually pushing for it to win Game of the Year is blinded by a cute cat game or didn't play any games this year, which is probably the closest to actually having a real opinion on the game. Stray was fun, but we've talked about it on this podcast before, and we'll probably talk about it again because it's nominated for Game of the Year. It really should not be nominated for Game of the Year, right? Fantastic game, but it's as shallow as a kiddie pool, right? And filled with as much piss as a kiddie pool. And then I thought, let's keep this party rolling. The next day I tweeted, look, Elden Ring was a good game, but anyone actually pushing for it to win Game of the Year is blinded by Soul's Game or didn't play any games this year.
Are you going to do that with God of War next?
I already did.
He already did. Yeah, he is on it.
God of War released at midnight, and at 12:05 I tweeted, look, God of War Ragnarok was a good game, but anyone actually pushing for it to win Game of the Year is blinded by Hot Daddy or didn't play any games this year.
It was amazing. I loved it though, because like Eljay was like, "You guys better get on this train with me," and I did not hesitate at all. I was there in the comments on it, just fueling the fires.
Oh yeah, that's right. I backed away. I did the Homer Simpson backing into a hedge thing. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I tweeted that Stray one, right? Which I don't think is necessarily a hot take. Even if it was like fully serious, it's not a hot take. I tweeted that Stray one, and this guy like came after me, right? He hit me with this, in quotes, "I am an all-knowing man gamer. If you disagree, you have a wrong trash opinion, you blind piece of shit." Then he continues, "I didn't play Stray personally. The only full playthrough I watched was meh. But if someone thinks it's Game of the Year, that's great too. I'm happy you enjoyed it." Motherfucker, you didn't play it, and then you admitted it was a meh game. And you put words in my mouth and straight up just called me, like acted like I was, like he called me a piece of shit. He's saying I'm calling other people a piece of shit. Could you? I feel like that's like, oh God, I just accidentally scratched my arm on a loose thread or a nail. I better cut the whole thing off.
I think he was going for that contrarian viewpoint of like, listen, my opinion's different from your opinion, but people are entitled to their opinions. But by that logic of what he just said is that who cares if somebody says that this should be Game of the Year? By saying that yourself, that's your opinion juxtaposing their opinion, which you said that you're fine with another person having a different opinion from yourself. So we've gone full on inception mode of what is an opinion.
But also just like going out of his way to personally attack someone versus someone just saying like, this game shouldn't be Game of the Year.
Yeah.
Here's a cheeky joke, having a poke, a bit of fun. Here it is. I'm going to say that you personally are a fucking piece of shit and you're an all-knowing man gamer. Like, dude, I'm not an all-knowing man gamer. You clearly are an idiot, though. Could you imagine not playing a game and being so fucking defensive that you have to find a reason to attack someone?
Even just the line of man gamer. Like, why? Like, why is that even?
I mean, this is Twitter, though, isn't it? Like, this is
true.
just Twitter to a take.
I have a hot take, though.
Okay.
There is this new breed of person, and they are so scared of anyone doing anything that could slightly upset someone else, like that tweet, right? And they're so scared of being the kind of person who might potentially upset someone or be the wrong thing, that they've become an absolute piece of shit to anyone else, right? To the point where like that exact situation unfolds. Here is this tiny little mid thing. No one actually gives a shit about my opinion. I'm throwing it out into the void. Who cares? Goes ape on me, right? He's so worried someone's going to be a piece of shit, he becomes a piece of shit. This is a new thing I'm finding, and it's really, really weird. Like, it's really strange.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get people. But I guess that's the internet for you.
I don't get people.
I wanted to read those out because I feel like if we're going to start talking about gaming, we have to prepare ourselves.
For the backlash that will ensue, for sure.
For the comments. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The flame wars.
We should say that we've got our own Discord and we, put ideas and everything like that. And LJ came to us with 3 things that he wanted us to think about for this episode. So LJ, what is your plan to the public out there who are listening?
So today, I am not doing necessarily a discussion around the game of the years for 2022. I wanted to get us into the mood by first talking about the best game that we've played this year, each of us. Okay, so the best game you've played, maybe some honorable mentions. Then I want to talk about a very dear category to my heart, best diamond in the rough. Okay, which means I'm calling it that because earlier today in my LJ Discord, we were looking at the indie nominations. Okay, and the indie nominations for game of the year this year, kind of frustratingly, feels strange. Because, I would include Cult of the Lamb as an indie game. And I would say Stray is also an indie game. Both of them are nominated. But I don't think it's fair for them to be in the same category as Tunic, or as Neon White, or as Sifu, okay? And the reason I say that is because indie game has become a very widespread thing now. Stray is the very first game developed by Blue 12 Studios. But Blue 12 Studios have a lot of experience as game devs, and they're being published by Annapurna Interactive, which, if you don't know Annapurna Interactive, they are a giant publisher. They did, not Inside, they did, Abzu. They did Abzu, and they did Journey, right? And a bunch of other stuff, right? And it just feels a little bit unfair. Same with Cult of the Lamb, okay? They've got some experience, but they're being also published by Devolver Digital. So it feels unfair for Tunic, which is made by, not even a dozen people, right? Being published by a tiny group of people to go up against them.
Okay.
So when I say diamond in the rough, I'm talking something you've played this year that does feel like it's an actual small indie kind of concept pulled together by a small group doing their best to create something.
Yep.
Okay? And then finally, I wanted to wrap it all out with 2 things. First, talking about what we love and we hate about games lately. Just giving some opinions and some ideas about things that we've thought of it really fun, or maybe things that really dried it all out. And then at the very end, I want to wrap up and talk about the Game of the Year nominations. Mainly just because they only released a few hours ago, and I'm a little bit frustrated in them, and I want to rant.
This will be good. I've only seen the Game of the Year nominations. I haven't seen the nominations for anything else because I want to keep it fresh.
I reckon let's save all of the other nominations for a dedicated potty.
Yep.
And we'll just talk about the specific Game of the Year today.
Sounds good.
All right.
Love it.
So again, doesn't have to be a 2022 game. It can be. It's just a game you played this year.
Oh, okay. Well, that changes. But I'm going to stick with 2022. That was what I thought when we were doing it. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. Happy.
Okay. I want to kick off with an honorable mention. Okay, because personally, this isn't technically a 2022, or technically, it's not really a game I played for the first time this year.
Should we do honorable mentions around? Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with an honorable mention first. Skyrim. Okay, here's my thing. I know Skyrim has been out for a very long time. The OG thing was it came out 11/11/11, right? That was the joke, right? Originally. I am doing an honorable mention for it because early this year, in about January, I picked it up and I played the Skyrim Anniversary Edition. And I personally think the Skyrim Anniversary Edition is how that game should be played forever. Okay. I think the survival mode is one of the best additions I've ever seen to a video game. The fact that you now have temperature, heating, so you go up in the snow, you need to put warmer clothes on, everything like that. Or there's food and hunger and you need to get sleep. It's so much more in-depth.
Immersive.
Okay? Immersive is a really good way of putting it, yes. And not just that, I also think there are a lot of other things added to it that really should have just been in the base game. So my honorable mention for game played this year that I love the most has to be Skyrim Anniversary Edition, because I spent hours upon hours just f***ing around in that world, and I felt like I was always progressing because I actually had things I was managing. It took Skyrim from do this quest, do that quest, do this quest, do that quest, to you just exist in this world, which is what that world should be, a place where you exist and simply roam and have fun with it. So that's my honorable mention.
All right, Nick, do you have an honorable mention that you've got?
My honorable mention would be, it's a game that I didn't get a chance to play at all, but I looked into it a lot, watched a few reviews, and it got reviewed very well. And it's called Nobody Saves the World. It's from the creators of Guacamelee.
Okay.
It's
That's
a little
old school.
Yeah, it's a little 2D action RPG, and it's absolutely brilliant. The whole idea is you kind of play this character who is like a nobody, and he can change into like basically like a shapeshifter, like with a magic wand, which how you get your different powers and you get your different gameplay elements. Really great game, has multiplayer as well. This like it came onto Game Pass, but it didn't. I saw like a couple notable people review it, but really I saw no one talking about it or anything, and it looked absolutely fantastic. And I'm sad I didn't get a chance to play it, but I do when I have some time. Definitely want to actually play it, probably in my own time, because it looks fantastic. So that's probably my honorable mention.
Okay.
Reapzy, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I've got I'm going to do a quick one in terms of, because I usually play horror, so obviously I'm just going to shout to all the people. Mortuary Assistant, fantastic. Honorable mention.
Great honorable mention.
I think it's really, really good in terms of like the progression and the different aspects, and you got to play it multiple times to get different endings. But
Did you play it multiple times?
I did. I did every single ending.
Wow.
So I did everything. It took about 11, 12 hours, something like that. It was great. I love it.
Do you feel like with Mortuary Assistant, the jump scares and the way they handled the scares and the horror and stuff like that felt so fresh?
Yes.
Because I watched Jacksepticeye play it, then I picked it up and I played it a little bit myself. And I felt like the jump scares in that game were like, they weren't some loud all the time.
No.
It was like a subtle, there's a man behind that shelf staring at you. And when you notice it and move quickly, he disappears. You know what I mean?
The encroaching of personal space that did so well, because there is that section when you have to go into the computer screen, and usually like games such as Welcome to the Game and things like that, they do a full in, here's 16 by 9, it takes up your whole screen. But he left it a little bit out, the developer, so that you can see the kind of peripheral fuzziness around it. And that was the bit where you see a man creep up. And I remember, I think it's clipped, and I'm just like, oh, what? Did everyone see that? Because then he just goes back down, and it's just an eerie sense. So for horror, that to me is like the honorable mention. But I do have my actual one. Yeah.
Just quickly on the topic though, because I feel like we don't need to rush through. We can talk about the games a lot. Like a really, really interesting one that I played this year to add on to that was The Closing Shift, which isn't a new game.
Yeah. Played that too.
Made by two Japanese brothers. It's not like Supernatural. It's an idea of a stalker. And what you were just saying there really reminded me of that, right? Where you're working on just your normal day job, making coffees and stuff, but because it's not like you don't zoom into any one task, you're always out. You can see the guy in the peripherals. Like the scariest moment for Closing Shift for me, where I got my biggest jump scare, other than when he's the woman with the pram.
Woman with the pram.
Other than that one, was I hopped off the bus and he was on the back of the bus as it drove away. That scared the shit out of me, and it was so subtle. But the reason it didn't scare the shit out of me wasn't a jump scare. It was the idea of, holy shit, what have I been missing? Where has he been all these times? You know what I mean? And that freaked me out, which is Mortuary Assistant. When I played it a little bit, I was like, I got to put it away. I can't. I was in ISO. at the time. So I was playing it here in the dark. And I was like,
mate.
I can't even go to bed and just lay next to Claire and be safe.
It's really that you bring up the fact about like the computer screen Reapz, because having the slight zoom out, you almost have that essence of safety, because you can see a bit of the room like around the computer screen, but then it has that flip effect where it's like, no, you can see other shit, and you're gonna get scared. There was like one or two moments where it was like it was kind of a cheap jump scare, but a lot of it was just terrifying. I had so many heart attacks playing that.
My favorite bit of it also was once I did the entirety of the game and I got all the endings, it's kind of like, okay, I don't need to replay it again. But you know, when you just go to like speedrun.com and you do see if people are doing speedruns on random games, I came up with my own speedrun. And that was, I had to go from the car, go through the lobby of the mortuary. There's a red vase on the table. You have to flip it and then run and put a person in the burner, right? And I think I got it down to about like, I don't know, minute 30, 2 minutes. I forget what it was, but it was just so much fun. And the good thing about the stream then was that people were getting on board with it. Like, I reckon you could shave off 2 seconds if you went on a diagonal going into that. And it was just like, it's that kind of ingenuity where it's just a game about, like, obviously you're a mortuary assistant, that people like, yeah, it's horror, but we can have fun with it. But what I do want to bring up is a game that is my honorable mention, and it's called Trombone Champ. I'm not sure if you've seen Trombone Champ, but to me, that is a quintessential game where it's like, okay, imagine pitching this to Activision or EA and going, it's a game, it's a rhythm game about playing a trombone. They're like, get the fuck out of here, right? but they did it so well where there's this whole other world where you're talking to baboons, your toots become farts, you can do collector's editions of famous trombone players. The biggest villain in it is Trizom, who's Mozart spelled backwards in another dimension. It's like, it's genius. It's so much fun to play as well. And you get like different rewards of like, you can change it to a muted, you can go 8-bit in terms of how you play. So it changes the whole scheme of the game. And to me, I just had such a blast playing it when I'm not a big rhythm games fan. Like, I don't play rhythm games, but to me, that whole world and the originality that they brought to it was just second to none. So that to me is definitely my honorable mention for Game of the Year.
100%.
I think it's also got a huge modding community now, which is what we talked about. I think I talked about this last week because Forge came out in Halo finally. And we were talking about it last week about how I felt like having community created content with Forge or Minecraft mods and stuff like that is such a big thing for gaming these days.
Yeah.
And one of the things about Trombone that's kept it so alive, despite it being quite a kind of a microcosm of a game, you know what I mean? Like it's a game that you pick up, everyone loves, but no one's going to play it for like 3-4 years.
Facts, yeah.
Except for the fact that people have been creating modded songs so much with it.
Yeah.
So like Liz Truss resigning as Prime Minister of the UK is like now a trombone.
Yeah.
So she goes up there and she's like, over the last few months, and then it's like,
That's so great. That was
amazing.
the biggest thing that they could that they had to do was allow the community to put in their own tracks, and that was amazing. And I think all just with the weird fun customizations was so fun. The fact that your trombone player almost looks like a Nintendo Mii, which I think added to it as well.
I think that was very intentional as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was
but
so much fun.
That to me, I have such a blast playing it. I mean, people really enjoyed it when I played it on the stream. Maybe not so much because I went back to like 3 or 4 times, but I'm like, I just want to play it. But it was such fun. And honestly, if you can pick it up because we should say that this is good time for doing these honorable mentions and games of the year for us, because we know that the Steam sale's coming up. You know, they always come up, and that's when you get the goods, get the goodies. So Trombone Champ, give it a look.
That's
like
a great.
$11.
That's a really good shout though, as well. That's a really, really good recommendation. I will say, if we're gonna, I want to quickly do one more honorable mention.
Yes.
Because my game, the best game I played 2022 or this year so far is something I think no one will be surprised to hear. But I want to give a shout out to Legends Arceus. Okay, I know it's big AAA Nintendo. I don't think it compares to a lot of stuff, and I also understand I'm saying Skyrim and Pokemon are my 2 honorable mentions, but don't worry, mate, you'll understand. But I think Arceus was such a breath of fresh air. I know you didn't pick it up, Reapz, I don't think.
I didn't pick it up, no.
Yeah, but I know Nick played it a bit. And I just feel like the gameplay loop in that was so well crafted. You know what I mean? A lot of people hated on the graphics early on, and I was really hesitant with the graphics as well. But then I actually got into the world, and because of the way they'd built the gameplay of it, I felt like a kid again, where graphics just did not matter at all.
Right.
Like it was like there was never a part of me that was sitting there being like, oh god, I wish that tree didn't look like that, or I wish that grass didn't look like that. Because the loop of just run out to the world, catch mons, catch as many mons as you want. We're not going to hold it to you, right? We're not going to make you only have 6 in your party. We're not going to do this. Like they took away every single thing that would be like frustrating for you and just gave you perfect freedom in this world to exist.
Right.
I played the starting zone and didn't move on from the starting zone or unlock the second zone. And I had about 40 hours of gameplay.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding.
Dude, you say it the same, man.
I was completely like almost maxed out on every single piece of XP and challenge I could do in that starting zone before I moved on. And it was honestly one of the best games I've ever played. And I think a lot of people will look back on it and they'll remember the frustrating parts about it, like the dialogue being a bit cheesy or like the story being a bit rough and stuff like that. But to me personally, the only thing that matters is that gameplay loop and if I'm having fun doing it. And I'll tell you what, I had so much fucking fun playing that game.
It was really fun. And like I had many arguments with people, like, you know, them just slamming hard on the graphics and, you know, saying that, you know, it should be better like this and that. And then it's like, well, yeah, okay, obviously the Nintendo Switch hardware is limited. Like that's just a fact of what it is. But then them, you know, drawing parallels to Breath of the Wild, saying, well, if they could do it Breath of the Wild, they could do this and that. And, you know, having discussions about the engine that Game Freak are using. And, you know, it's a whole other discussion. But overall, like, OJ, I felt the same way. It's like, okay, the graphics can seem a little bit rough in a few instances, but realistically, the immersion was great. The music was fantastic. And I just spent so much time just take my time through each area, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was so much fun.
I find that the people who go so hard on the graphics and the engine and all those kinds of things and attack it so much, they're part of the reason why developers don't take these risks, right? Because if they'd just released a Pokemon game that looked exactly the same as Sword and Shield, they still would have been shit on, but it wouldn't have been as bad. But because they took this big risk with these big open world maps and all these extra things and these new ways of doing things, well, it meant that they could try something new and learn from it, but also meant they were going to get way more flack. And I think that's one of the big thing is like, I feel like a lot of people need to realize that their absolute outcry and hatred they put out into the world about certain things can sometimes be the reason why we don't see developments. Like Destiny used to have all these hidden secrets thrown into it every single season that you could go hunt down and track and stuff like that. And they stopped doing them because the devs were getting death threats, right?
Yeah.
Like legitimately. And just this last week, they finally brought back and did this big new event where like they made it so like a gun came to life and took over all the social media and stuff. Like this meme one called Telesto. And it was really exciting and cool. And of course, the fucking community had issues with it as well. And it's like, dude, chill out. Like otherwise they won't do this again.
Right.
So I loved Arceus and I understand the graphics could have been better. I'm very much aware of that. But yeah, I just feel like personally, people need to realize that there's a difference between constructive criticism and just being critical.
Yeah, that's true.
There's points where I had issues with like the render distance, but like that was probably the biggest one for me. Like the graphics still overall, like for what the Switch can do, was passable. Like it was good. It was good enough for what it needed, and because it was very much like. It was like you said, it's a risk. This game is very different from what all the fans know. And in developing the new overworld catching mechanic that we experienced in Arceus, which was a lot of people theorized was for Scarlet and Violet, and they just decided, hey, we've got this mechanic, we've kind of got this idea, let's just do it. That's to me, I think what I think is most plausible as to why it happened, and obviously most of the development resources were for Scarlet and Violet, so it also makes sense in that case as well why Arceus didn't look as good as what it could have. But I think with the success of the Legends game, they pitched this, this whole Legends game as a series, right? It's a Pokemon Legends Arceus. We're going to get more in the future depending on how it did. And it did really well. And I'm actually genuinely excited for whenever a new Legends game does come out. And it means that, we're going to have more Pokemon content and longer development cycles between each game. It'll be longer between core line games, but we'll have other stuff in the meantime. So
I think it's just generally it's a good movement, a good step. You know what I mean? And like they've clearly made it. They've clearly made the concept to say, hey, look, we're allowed to give some of the games over to other people. You guys want Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl remakes? We're going to give those to a different agent, a different developer, and they can do it, right? And they'll do their things. You'll still get those, everything. Like we've had like 3 or 4 Pokemon games this year. Right? Like there's a lot of stuff out there. So I don't know. I'm really excited. That was an honorable mention.
Nice.
But I would like to say what my best game I played this year was.
Ooh, here we go.
It is not a 2022 game, but it is Inside. Which I feel like should shock nobody who's followed the games I've played this year at all. I've played a lot of them. But I think that Inside, even though it's short, it's only like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. I think it's one of the most immersive experiences. And I most importantly think that in a game like Inside, where it's left to right, not much to control, you pull things, you pick things, you can just do really simple, small things. I think one of the biggest strengths is when A, you tell a really good story without bogging you down too much, and B, the gameplay never feels like it's, okay, I guess I push right again. You know what I mean? And Inside did something that Stray, with all of its pretty graphics and everything like that, could never do, which was it made it a simple gameplay mechanic feel fun to keep doing, and they kept developing on it. You know what I mean?
And they knew the duration as well of like 2 hours was like peak performance for it. Yeah.
I feel like the thing, right, is you go into Inside, and it introduces you very quietly to the idea of stealth. It introduces you really nicely to the idea of push over the fridge and get over the fence. Then it teaches you, hey, you can climb like this, or hey, you can do these things. Really small mechanics that when you slowly allow them to build on each other, they become very dynamic and interesting and fun, and the puzzles become really easy and fun to work through. And I felt that Inside was just so perfectly put together in every way. There was so much care in it. Whereas not to be critical, if we have to compare it to a game that came out this year of a similar genre, which is Stray, I feel is a similar genre. It's a singular narrative, non-dialogue, or not non-dialogue, non-speaking character who does its thing, right? I feel like they never evolved their gameplay. Okay, so they added, the UV light, and then they instantly took it away. And then for the rest of the game, it really was just stealth game. Here is basic stealth game with not much else to it, And of course, I don't think Stray was a bad game, but I just want to compare the difference in how well a little game like a little actual indie game like Inside can do when you compare it to something that's still coming out this year. And 100% best game. Music was amazing. Story was amazing. Don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but so good.
The ending is otherworldly. It's just, it's great. Like, and it's such a simple mechanic in terms of, I believe that when I play a game, right, it's like, what is the actual end result in me if I complete it? Like, is it worth it? Like, and to me, Inside is basically you're trying to get out. Like, that's the whole mechanic, isn't it? You're trying to get outside of, I don't want to spoil anything. And
the system,
right? And when you do, it's like this, I can't say without spoiling it, but it's wow, you're like,
it makes you feel.
Yes,
like it actually makes you feel something, which I think is that you're right. It's what is your final, like when you finish something, does it make you feel anything? Whereas with Stray, I weirdly, what's strange? Inside, I played the whole thing. It's been out for years. I still wouldn't want to spoil it for anyone. Stray, I wouldn't care about mentioning the ending, which I think says a lot, right? I'm not going to spoil Stray because I think everyone should pick it up and play it, allow you to have your own opinions.
Yeah.
But early on in Stray, there's a moment where you look up at this big mural, okay? And your little companion says something. I looked at camera and I said, oh, so X, Y, Z and A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the ending. I was 30 minutes into the game and I'd called the entire ending. And I think that's because they were trying, like Inside tells a story really subtly and calmly and carefully, and it doesn't push anything, it doesn't hold your hand. It allows you to make your own conclusions. Stray, within 30 minutes, was like, this is the story, here's how it all works. We're spelling it out for you because your cat can't talk.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree. Like the reveal at the end of it is like, yeah, we saw this coming a while ago. But I mean, it was still,
honestly, if you don't see the ending coming, you were not really paying attention at all to the game, which is fine. If you skip cutscenes, you do you. But legitimately, if you watch the cutscenes, there's no way in those first 30 minutes you can't have called exactly how that game ends.
There's a sentimentality aspect as well to Stray that I was hoping to see at the end, which never delivered. In terms of, I'm gonna. It's not really a spoiler per se, because it happens in the first like 5-10 minutes of the game. So I'll cut it out later if we feel it's too much. But basically, you're a cat and you've got your other alley cats that you're going around with. And then you are you go off the beaten path, you fall down this thing and you no longer can see your cats and they're calling out to you, your pride.
You hear them.
You can hear them.
The saddest part is you can hear the cats up at the top meowing and calling for you and you can't get back to them. You can even run at the wall and your little cat will do an animation trying to get up and slide down and feeling sad.
And I was like, great, fantastic. I know what my, I should say, mission objective is. It's to go see those cats.
Get back there.
So I'm going to leave that as is. But yeah, the thing about Stray as well is that I found with this kind of, it's not really open world, but it's open areas, right? And there were some split kind of different mission objectives you could do, but it never felt to me like rewarding. Like I was hoping that there was more, or there was more kind of like it would open to a different part of the world. And then when you got to the enemies, they were kind of simple. Like it just felt like, and then they just completely forgot about them, at the end. So I think a lot of people love the fact that obviously it's the perspective and POV of a cat, and they do the cat animations well, and everything, the slinking, and it's great and it's funny. It's a cat. But if you replace the cat with, say, a human being, would that still be the same game? And people go, well, obviously you can't do that. That completely changes the subversive nature of why you're doing it. But I'm just saying that if we look at the kind of storyline elements and we look at the kind of different options you have when you don't do the main storyline quest, there's not really much to it, is there?
No.
Like,
And here's the thing. I'd be fine with it again if each zone added a mechanic.
Yeah.
Right. This is my thing. This is my concept. When it comes to gameplay, if you're going to make your game 6-7 hours or whatever it is, 5 hours, and you're going to make it so there's all these zones that aren't open world but are supposed to feel like it's a living, breathing world, which was a big thing. It was supposed to feel like a living, breathing world, but I never actually felt like it was. You know what I mean? It was very static.
I mean, I guess that was kind of the intention, given like it is kind of like, you know, apocalyptic sort of underground city.
So no, you're taking the wording literally. I'm meaning like they're like, and let's be real, the robots were supposed to be very human, you know,
Human-esque.
but like the whole concept is they're trying to make it look like there's this little town that is existing and they're doing all this stuff, but it's very static, very frozen. You know what I mean? And your actions really don't change anything. You know what I mean? Like the story as well is like, for example, you can do things earlier than when you need to. So there's a part where you have to like deliver a bunch of stuff to this guy, but I found it before it was up to that part in the story, and he was like, "Get me all this stuff, and I'll build you a little hat or something like that." And I don't want to spoil stuff and pretend I'm using the wrong words on purpose. And I was like, "Yeah, cool, sweet, I'll do that. I want a little hat for my cat." And I go build it all, and he goes, "Yeah, it's too big for you." I was like, "Well, okay, that's not rewarding. That's not. You can't do that." I understand if I got into a point in the story where they were like, "Go build a little hat for me," I'd be like, "I'm going to go build a little hat for him." But I found it early on, and I was excited because I was like, shit, they've made it so this world has a bunch of side quests and little fun things I can do that'll affect things, and I can get a little hat for myself, and my cat can run around in a hat. And I was like, oh, okay.
Nothing
I guess
really
I'll
changes.
just, I won't, and that taught me. I was like, I guess I just won't spend much time in the world.
Yeah.
And like a little bit later is in the next zone, there's a guy, and I'm like, oh, there's a guy here, and he has this particular quest. I'm like, I'll do that. Oh, no, it wasn't a side quest they'd put in to make the world feel really good. It was actually just part of the normal story, and it was actually really boring and dull. You know what I mean? Like, it was really quick. It was over.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go too on to Stray. I just feel like the reason I bring it up and talk about it is because I want to compare it, because I really think that Stray was trying to be in the same category of games as Journey, as Abzu, as Inside, all those sorts of games where it's like telling a simple story with a very singular thread.
Yeah.
But I think it just really missed the beat, personally. Whereas Inside is a masterclass by Playdead Studios about how to do that, which is, to be fair, they've got a lot of practice with Limbo. Limbo came out before Inside, which by the same people, and Somerville came out today. I don't know if you guys are tracking this, but
I'm not, no.
this is one of the saddest parts about the Game of the Year stuff is Somerville released today. So if you guys don't know, Playdead split up into two studios. The two guys who were working at Playdead on Limbo and Inside hate each other, apparently. And so they split up into two studios. They kind of split one game into two, and they built their own things now. But Somerville was made by one of them. I don't know which one, but it was made by one of them. And now I don't know. Someone Google it.
I'm Googling it now. The developer's called Jump Ship.
Jump Ship, that's it. Jump Ship's the new one. Made by one of them. And they're making Somerville, which if you don't know anything about it, all I want you to do is go on YouTube, look up Somerville gameplay trailer or game trailer. It is so amazing. It is beautiful. It is very much built in the same style of Inside, everything like that. And I'm so excited to see what these devs do. But it came out today.
Tomorrow. Oh, sorry.
No,
yes,
today.
yes.
Today.
You're right.
So-
You're right.
So it can't be in Game of the Year.
Of course.
Instead we've got Stray as one of the nominees for Indie Game of the Year because Somerville dropped today.
Is the cutoff like November? Like it has to come out before November, or
I'm not sure, but the nomination's already out, so it can't be involved. And it's like, well, do you want people to rush to try and get them out early in the year? Like,
I guess that's kind of what Oscars have done well in terms of they do it the year after the first 2-3 months, you know, so everything can be released in that previous year, and then they go, okay, these were the best. While with the Game of the Year awards, it's like, okay, we need to do it in December, so we got to announce things by November so people can vote. And then obviously the cutoff just happens and people forget from December of the previous year. Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
And I just thought I'd bring up Somerville because it's on topic of Inside and stuff like that. But with that out of the way, Nicholas, what is your best game you've played this year?
My best game that I've played this year is without a doubt The Outer Wilds and its DLC. Like there's just nothing gets as close to the experience that Outer Wilds offers. It is just phenomenal. I've never played anything like it. It's such a fresh and different and unique experience, and it's the kind of thing where it's almost the Outer Wilds. It creates this club, but in a positive way, right? You've got the people that have played it and haven't played it, and everyone that's played it loves talking about it and they love discussing it, things like that. But there's one thing they all have in common: they love watching people who are playing it for the first time and seeing their reactions and how their brain puts the puzzle pieces together. It is so fantastic.
I think I'd have to play this on stream because I've heard nothing but positive reviews. It looks otherworldly, and every time that I talk about people, they're like, "You have to do this game. You have to be a part of it." Because I honestly know nothing about it apart from the name itself, and I've looked at some of the I should say graphics of it. That's all I know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. Okay.
That's one of the games that, because of the way I've heard about it, I will never play as a content game.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, one of the things I'm most excited about with that, because I've got this big list of games that I want to play now that I'm not streaming a lot of games. And I just got my HDMI sync box so that all my lights behind me will be able to sync up to what's on my screen.
Oh, cool.
And so,
Nice.
yeah, I'm going to set myself up one of these nights, get myself a lemon lime vodka bitters, and I think I'm going to start playing through a bunch of games that are really immersive, like, for example, Outer Wilds.
Yeah.
And there's a few others as well, but we're going to go to those.
I like Danny DeVito also watching you play it in the background. I don't know
Yes.
why, but that tickles my fancy that he's like,
My dad.
Play.
You say LJ will still be live streaming just for Danny DeVito in the background.
Yeah, it's just for our boy DD.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good shout. Like, again, I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. And again, I would like to ask, have you played the DLCs as well, or the DLC? I'm not sure of how many there are.
So play
Would
the
you
DLC.
say it lives up to the original game? Because you know how sometimes they tack on DLCs and it's like, oh, it was good, but you know, it's a DLC.
The DLC absolutely stacks up to the original game. It adds a lot that also ties in to the original story. It is actually really, when you get to the end of the DLC and all the puzzle, like everything comes together, you have another one of those like mind blown moments where you understand more of the original game that you played. And it's really great too, because once you have completed the DLC, you can go back to like the original area of the game and redo the last like mission sequence. And there's like new elements in the ending of the Outer Wilds.
That is sick.
Which is, that one's not a spoiler. That's just like a little like tidbit of like, hey, once you finish the DLC, go and redo the ending of the main game.
Dude, I'm just looking at the Steam reviews, and usually, you know, they're the memeiest type of crap. It's like, has boy and dad 10 out of 10, and you're like, fuck off. But these ones are like, this song is new to me, but I'm honored to be a part of it. Game of the year, best game I've ever played. What a masterpiece. Like, every single review is positive, with like 20 to 40 hours on record. So that to me is a really like strong step to be like, okay, I got to play this bad boy.
Yep.
Okay, question on the DLC front. Do you feel like there should be a category in nominations for best DLC released of that year?
Yes,
I think so.
Definitely do. Definitely.
I
think
don't
it would
believe
give
there
people
is
impetus.
one, but I feel like that's a cool idea, right?
Yeah, it gives people impetus to actually put thoughts, because I think we know many times, this is probably a question for afterwards, but you know when they do release DLC, and sometimes DLC can just be, here's a new character, right? But one of the best DLCs ever for me was, I believe it was called, I could be completely wrong, Red Dead Redemption 1. Was it called Undead Nightmare?
Oh, Undead Nightmare was amazing.
It was a $20, I think, something like that. I could be completely wrong, but it was like $20 from memory. And it was like another 12 hours of content. And I'm not just talking about, you know, like roundabout way of 12 hours. It was like mission story, sub quest. It was so freaking cool. And I don't think they've made any good DLC. I shouldn't say that. I haven't experienced any good DLC that's lived up to that for quite some time.
The Blood and Wine DLC for The Witcher 3 was definitely top tier as well.
Oh, I haven't played Witcher 3, so that's another one on my list.
That's one of the ones that I've got that I'm going to pick up. I tried to play Witcher 3 on stream, and I learned very quickly there are some games that you should just not play on stream.
Yeah.
Because I talked about how I got a lot of flack for this, weirdly, but I talked about how I tried to play Witcher 3 on stream, and there were so many menus and so many things to learn early on and lots to do and lots to remember, that it was very hard because a lot of that you'd lose because you were talking to chat and things like that.
Yes.
And it wasn't a criticism of the game. It was just me saying that it was not a stream game.
Yeah, and it's true. There are things that aren't stream games. You're so right.
I got a lot of flack from people being like, oh, what? So you just can't remember things? And I was like, I didn't say Witcher was bad.
Yeah.
Calm down. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I feel like it was really hard to dual notice and I want to play that game properly. Which is another thing is like, I just don't want to. Also, it's like, what is it like? It'd be like 50 fucking streams to get through the whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long game. I felt that way with Cyberpunk. I streamed it once, and immediately I was like, and I didn't make much progress, and I was like, yeah, this is not a good stream game at all.
No, people want. Fair. Yeah, it is fair. I think it's completely fair. But okay, on to my game of the year. I think you boys should know it. I just want to make sure that I got the name exact. Hopefully you know it.
Mario Odyssey.
It is Fall Guys.
It has to be 2022. It has to be 2022. What has come out this year that he would love?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, have a guess. And it is in 2022.
Did you play it on stream?
Yes.
You did play it on stream.
It was one of my favorite things to play on stream this year.
Toilet Chronicles.
How did you know? Oh, that is an amazing. That's an honorable mention. That is a
but I don't
game.
think it came out this year though.
Yeah.
I have no idea when it came out.
I mean, you liked Cult of the Lamb, but you weren't a huge fan of Cult of the Lamb.
I think it's a good game. I wouldn't say it's like an amazing game.
I'm gonna say that I don't know if it came out this year, but I'm gonna say Inscription.
No, although that would be right up there.
That did come out there. I know I want to play Inscription badly.
It could be like something like what's the one that you played, A Plague's Tale, but that came out years ago, and you thought it was this year, like 2022.
Yeah, I played Plague Tale, and then I played a Plague Tale Requiem the other day, and that to me just wasn't a stream game, because they kept whispering it, and I don't know why, but whispering just pisses me off. So I had to stop, and I can't do this anymore, guys. I can't.
Roof's in the ASMR category, pissed the fuck off.
I was so pissed. I was like, we gotta do this. Like literally 75% of it. I'm like, shut up, just let me do it. Anyway, no, it's not a Plague Tale, although that was a fantastic game.
Man, that makes it really difficult, to be honest.
You're going to kick yourself when I tell you. And it's not a horror game. It's not an interactive game.
I felt like it would have to be. I mean, well, Red Dead came out years ago, so you can't be that.
And it's from this year. It's from this year.
But like, that's why I'm so confused as to why it's not Inscription, because you loved Inscription.
I do. But there was one that just made me feel a little bit better. A little warmth inside.
I'm trying to think as well.
Are you looking at his Twitch tracker? I'm looking at his game's Twitch tracker.
Yeah, I'm literally heading there now.
What is this? Like, you can't do this. This is sacrilege.
I
can't just tell you.
It's one of the best you've played in 2022.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Did you play it for long?
Yeah, I played it all the way through.
Games, hang on. Like,
you can't look. You got to guess.
It's not like you didn't like The Quarry. You and I both agreed The Quarry
was The Quarry. You know, it was watching a movie.
There was a 45-minute timer there where it literally Switch Sports, maybe.
No,
60 seconds.
No. I'm just going to tell you.
It's not Resident Evil Village, because that came out a year ago. 2 years ago.
It's not Resident Evil Village. No, it is.
Stray.
It's Stray. It is the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe Edition.
Yes.
It's so good. It is so meta. It is so like, I was like, what are they going to do to this game? Is it just the same game with a little bit of DLC? It just subverts everything. Is this a bucket? It's just like so meme worthy, and I was so intrigued. And I honestly loved it. I was just absorbed in the world. I was like, because I played the Stanley Parable way back in the day. And the fact that they did this, like, you know, a big old tongue-in-cheek thing, like, here's the Ultra Deluxe edition of it. And they made fun of the fact that people buying the same game, but it's not the same game. I loved it. It was just everything to me. It was chill. It's laid back. And you're just like completely immersed in the storyline and what you're doing, because it is so random. So that to me was the game of the year, Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
I love that, dude. That's such a good shout too. I think the devs of that game have what we were talking about a little bit earlier. They really understand what the fun part of the game is.
Yeah.
You know, they're not trying to make everything kind of flash it up. They've got the fingers on the pulse of the internet. They know what people are playing it for. They know why it's fun. They know what's making it enjoyable. And they just cut all that shit that would normally piss you off or frustrate you in a game.
Yeah.
They just cut all of it and just keep it to that nice, clean, single focus of what is fun.
And they didn't do the thing. It's like, you've got to complete the previous game before you can play this extra bit of it. They literally give you the choice if you want to do the first game or the second game that extends the storyline and everything like that. I just had such a blast with it. I honestly really can't recommend it more if you like those type of things. No, it's not about aim. It's not about, solving puzzles or anything. It's just this great experience. And I had such a blast. We were trying to find all the different endings, and my cat's now jumping on me. It's good times. I really enjoyed it. That's my game of the year so far, obviously, in November.
The announcement trailer was probably one of the best things I've ever seen.
It was so good. So good.
That's such a good shout. I think there are a lot of games in that genre that, not necessarily in the comedy aspect of it, but in that genre of kind of first person walking through environment, kind of similar, sort of like puzzles, not puzzles, but like one that I want to throw on, attack onto the end of yours that I thought was really good that I think everyone should pick up.
Yeah.
Shit. I've lost the name.
It's the one. The name was shit.
Guys,
No. I had the name in the back of my head, and then I closed my notes that I was writing stuff in because you mentioned yours and I typed it out. It's the one where everything is you move something further away, drop it, and it gets bigger.
Oh yeah.
Superliminal.
Superliminal. There you go. Yeah, I think that was honestly one of the greatest games I've played in a long time in terms of puzzles.
Yeah,
it kind of got ruined for me because I streamed it, which is I'm learning very quickly.
I did the
sometimes,
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes just there are games that honestly streaming kind of fucking ruins gaming a lot of the time, and I think that's a fact everyone has to agree on.
Yeah.
But I played that and I remember just thinking to myself, like, some of these puzzles are so fun. I also like the fact that, kind of similar to the Breath of the Wild shrines, there was no one individual way you must solve a puzzle. There was always like, how do you get through here? Yeah, you could build up a bunch of blocks and get up, or you could just pick the entire fucking wall up.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn, yeah, that's sick. I'm about that.
Yeah.
I love honestly developing that game because it's so seamless, like the way you just move back, it's enlarging objects or making them smaller. It is like I love that. It's such a
wish
great
I could do
game.
that in real life.
You're gonna love Superliminal. It's just so good.
That's a really good recommendation. Yeah, if you enjoyed that. Could you imagine Superliminal as 2-player?
Oh mate, that would be that would break
Having
the game.
someone drop an entire fucking chess piece on you or something like that.
You could make your person you're playing with bigger or smaller.
That'd be amazing.
So cool.
I want VR 2-player Superliminal where you stretch like things.
You're in a 3D space that could do everything. That would be
like
sick.
you've got your things and someone's really far away, but you just kind of like click and you pull. And like even though they're far away, like it recognizes and you get to do it. How cool would that be?
Yeah, that would be wicked.
Wouldn't it be great as well if you do that in real life? Like look down and you just... Anyway, sorry. Sorry. Moving on.
Keep going. I'm just going to move my cat out of the room.
What were you going to say there? What were you going to say?
Don't listen to this, Quinn. Don't listen.
Before we keep moving on and talk a bit about the Diamond in the Rough games, a little transition to In the Rough, but still fun. We just talked about it quickly, The Quarry. I think we all... Did you pick it up and end up playing it, Nick?
I didn't get around to it.
I think The Quarry is a step down from the Until Dawns and stuff like that of the genre. Would you agree with that, Reapz?
Oh, for sure. Like, as we've said many, many times, when it comes to The Quarry, I think it's great that they're trying to make more cinematic type of horror games because when we think of horror, it is always cinematic, right? But the problem that we always talked about, Eljay, which was you and I, is that you're literally sitting there for 40 minutes watching something happen and you press E once. Yeah.
That's literally what happened in one of them.
Yeah.
I'm in a jail cell listening to dialogue for like 45 minutes. And at one point, I was playing it on stream. Also, one of the best games to stream, which is really interesting, isn't it? And I was laying on stream and I was like this. I had my legs up. Like I was like laying back. 45 minutes, teacup falls. I lifted my hand with the controller, tapped it, caught the teacup, looked at chat and said, all right, 45 minutes. That's how long it was before we did that. Someone start the next timer. Pull it back down. I just kept going. Like legitimately, it was the silliest thing ever. But all that being said, if we have to take the game at what it was trying to be, I would actually say it was really up there. Like I like this is a hard thing, right? Because I feel like when you rate a game, there's a lot of assumptions, or when you say a game is good, there's a lot of assumptions saying you're comparing it to other things.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to compare The Quarry to Skyrim Anniversary Edition or stuff like that, right? And I think that's where something like Sonic Frontiers has been really interesting these last few weeks, because a lot of journalists hate that game. But then a lot of YouTubers love that game. But then there are a couple other YouTubers who despise it. And it's kind of like everyone's arguing whether Sonic Frontiers is a good game or not.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing I find really interesting about it is that this is part of what this industry is. Some games are good and some games are bad. And if you're going to listen to other people's opinions in order to decide what you should play, well, then that's where the strength of a reviewer comes in. If they're always reviewing and honest about their opinion, is that there are some who you'll align with, and those are the people you listen to.
Yeah.
Right? So like if someone always finds themselves disagreeing with what I enjoy, that's fine. That means that you probably are going to be able to find games that I love and go, I know I'm not going to pick that up because Eljay likes it and I hate everything Eljay seems to like.
Yeah.
But that's what's really interesting about The Quarry, right? Is I would say if we're rating it out of 5, I would give it like a really high score, like a 3.8 or a 4.
Okay.
Because as much as there's not as much gameplay as like Until Dawn and stuff like that, I was really invested.
Yeah.
The characters are cheesy, but they're meant to be cheesy. The story is kind of dumb, and early on you call it, but it's still fun to be involved in it. Because to be honest, even though the story was predictable, the ending was predictable, getting there was still really twisty-turny.
But you didn't know, like once you got that hindsight, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that kind of all fits into place. But at the time, the big thing is with all these games is it's cool of, you know, the mark of it is that any character can die at any time and that will change the ending. So you're always on edge about like, oh, this is a big chase sequence. If I screw up one of these quick time events or something, that's kaput for that person. How's that going to change the outcome? So you want everyone to survive and everything. And I remember going through those last like 2 hours or so where it is a big chase sequences and revelation and blah, 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 going, I need everyone to survive. I want to see like the perfect ending, as it were. And then you want to go back and go, I wonder what would happen if we killed X because X was involved in Y at the end. And that's good. The replayability or rewatchability as it comes to The Quarry comes into effect there. Yeah.
Well, the thing about The Quarry I was quite proud of is I actually managed to beat that game with my entire main cast alive. The only people who died were people who I specifically chose and said, you're not main cast, you're a bad person who's not a part of the people who were introduced early on. I'm going to fucking kill you. Right? Like those are decisions I made. I could have kept them alive, but they were decisions I made.
Yep.
And I thought that was great because my ending, I'm not going to spoil it, my ending meant that I was really able to kind of control, understand, and have a lot of reason and thought. Whereas I have a few mates who played it and they get to the end, and because they had lost so many people, there's this one thing where essentially, Reapz, you know what's going on. I guess I won't try not to spoil it, but you're in kind of a car and something happens. And if you only have one person there, you just lose the whole game.
Oh, didn't know
But
that.
if you have, but if you have like 2 or 3 people, you're able to survive, right? Because not everyone is affected by whatever happens.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know which bit.
Yeah. So it's really, really cool. And so I want to give a shout out to The Quarry in that before we move on to the Diamond in the Rough, because I think that while it was rough, I think it was still got a lot of like fun moments, fun twists. And for what it's meant to be, it's the kind of thing you could sit on the couch with like your mates or your wife or your partner or whoever.
Totally.
And you all play it together in a night, to be honest. And it'll be great.
Yeah, you're right. And also it is high quality as well. Like the sets, the motion capture, it's high quality. Yeah.
So Diamond in the Rough though. I'll give an honorable mention before I give my final answer to a sort of smaller game that I think did really well. The Looker.
Ooh,
The Looker
yes.
is one of the funniest, most well-designed. It's only like 45 minutes, I think, maybe. I don't know. But it was so much fun. It is a play on the Witness, where you are solving puzzles and doing all sorts of stuff, but it's all very jokey.
Yeah.
There's one line in it where I went up to a tape recorder, I drew a line to start the tape recorder, and it's really serious and starts describing this really big world. It has nothing to do with the game, right? Has nothing to do with it whatsoever. And they're describing all these different superheroes and the political structure and stuff. And they go, and then Storm Girl exists, and Storm Girl can control storms and talk to aliens and do this, and she's got giant tits. And like, it's so subversive and funny and hilarious, the entire thing. If anyone hasn't played The Looker, pick it up. It is essentially, if you've played games your whole life or you like playing games, this will take every trope and every hilarious thing from video games that is just so overdone and put it on its nose and make fun of it. So
I love
honorable mention to The Looker.
And it's free.
It is free, I think, or maybe like $2. But
I'm on
need to check
Steam right
that
now, and it's currently free. So get it now.
Ooh, all right.
yeah.
I will definitely get that one. That's when you first told us about The Looker, and there was like a couple things like I think it was the only clip I've seen was the short you made of the button. And that was hilarious. And I'm like, this game is great. I need to play it.
I think this
me asking the button, do you think I'll be a big streamer one day? And the button going, no, maybe you can't do it. Maybe you're a sniveling little piece of shit coming back to me to ask for help and beg me, you little piece of shit. And then me going, are you sure? And pressing the button again and going, you can do it.
I think this sums up the review on Steam here, which I think is great. If you love The Witness, you'll like The Looker. If you hate The Witness, you'll love The Looker. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's just one of these things that you can take out of your own space and time and just realize, I'm going to have a good time. And it's very, very funny. Yeah.
I loved The Looker as well. Do you guys have any honorable mentions for Diamond in the Rough this year?
I did. Nick, do you want to go first? If you've got one.
Well, sorry. I thought earlier we were talking about the honorable mentions for Diamond in the Rough. So I was confused by that one.
That was the game of the year.
That was game of the year.
Yeah.
That's why I was so confused why you mentioned a game you hadn't played.
Yeah, no, okay, no. In the way my brain heard it, you talk about Diamond in the Rough, and then you're like honorable mentions, and then that's where it went. So that was where my brain went.
Was that your game of the year?
No. So Outer Wilds was my the DLC was my best game of the year. The Nobody Saves the World, which I was talking about earlier, that was my honorable mentions to the best Diamond in the Rough.
So that was your Diamond in the Rough. Oh,
that was my the honorable mention, but my actual Diamond in the Rough.
We haven't said that yet.
No.
Hold on. We'll go Reapsy then. Reapsy,
Okay.
What's your honorable mention?
Honorable mention. Okay. This is being recommended to me by obviously the amazing horror crew. So like Walkman, Sharky, everything like that. And I think they've had a few games before this, but I'm on Observation Duty. If you've ever played that series.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I think it's a really good concept, and I think it can easily be expanded on and made even more intricate and more kind of like complex, not complicated, complex. That it can add a lot of things. And basically, I'm on Observation Duty is you've got like, say, 8 cameras in a certain place, say a warehouse or your own house, and you got to go around flipping like you're a security guard, seeing if there's any anomalies. So it could be like a ghost or something's moved in another direction, and you got to remember it. So it's kind of like a spot the difference type game, but with a horror twist to it. And I think it can easily be expanded on, and it's just a lot of fun. That's my Diamond in the Rough. I think everyone will have a great time playing it. Even if you're not a big fan of horror, it's more creepy than horror, if that makes sense.
It's kind of an adult Five Nights at Freddy's-esque concept, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. But definitely more complex than Five Nights at Freddy's, where it's I can easily see this thing has moved. You've got to remember a lot of stuff going on. And sometimes it's hilarious as well. Like they put in little tongue-in-cheek jokes, so it's very well played.
I watched you play it, and I really wanted to give it a go, but the problem I snagged when I tried it was I have such a bad fucking memory for that kind of thing.
That was my thing too.
I feel like I never developed object permanence when I was a baby. Because like legitimately I'll sit there and they'll be like, what's changed? What's missing? And I'll be like, was that painting there? And they're like, dude, yeah. The painting was there. What are you talking about? Of course it was there. It's like there's this great scene in if you guys don't know, some of the guys who used to do College Humor created a D&D channel called something like D20 or Roll20 or something like that.
Right.
And the DM is Brennan. If you don't know who Brennan is, he's like one of the funniest guys from College Humor. But he's playing a character and he leans over to one of them and goes, "Remember, on the first day of school, I told you the most powerful magic is." And she goes, "Love?" And he goes, "No, you fucking idiot. It's not. It's chronomancy." And just like starts ripping her apart. Love can't do shit and stuff like that. And it's like, that's me with like, anytime I try play those spot the difference games, I'll be like, oh, I think the banana wasn't there before. And people are like, fuck. But the banana's been here since day one.
That's the funny thing though, because I'm also the same. But the thing is, I blame chat. So if I get anything wrong, I'm like, chat, how did you not notice that vase is now floral instead of a permanent color? How could you not realize that, you idiots, you fools? And they had a good laugh about that. Well, I think they did. So yeah, I just blame chat. And they also love to go, I think that was different. And of course, people get it wrong and then you blame them again. It's a really fun thing to do. And another one of those games that you could honestly play with a few friends in the same room and go, pretty sure that was there. Because you only get 3 strikes usually, and then it's kind of like you fail.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
I never got around to playing it, but it definitely looked like a bit of fun. Especially like, being able to do it on stream and have everyone in chat participate. Be like, no, that's different. I swear. No, you're a liar.
You're dead on the money, mate. You're dead on the money. Yeah. So that's mine.
I love that. That's actually a really good shout, to be honest. I didn't expect that. This is why I love this crap, right, by the way. And if you're listening to this, please do jump on the comments of the YouTube video. Even if you're listening audio, I'd love to see what you guys are writing for honorable mentions for both these categories and also for yours. Remember, it doesn't have to be released this year, just played this year. And if you do, I want to be able to pick some of these up and try them out. And don't worry, I won't shit on them too hard.
Straight. So, diamond in the rough, LJ. Do you want to kick us off with what is your diamond in the rough for 2022?
Did I not? Oh, no. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
we did honorable mentions. Yeah.
Yes, honorable mentions. My diamond in the rough for this year, weirdly, is Plate Up. Now I don't know if I like putting co-op games in as overall category winners a lot of the time, because I feel like some of the same reason why It Takes Two winning Game of the Year, I was a bit like, because like a large majority of people can't play It Takes Two.
Yeah.
Right. That's just a hard fact of it. We can't. Like I haven't got someone I can play with because it's not the kind of thing my partner loves to play. Plate Up though was just such a fun take on the cooking co-op game that you see people play.
Yeah.
Like every time we'd pick that up, Reapz, I'm sure your chat did it too. They'd be like, is this like Overcooked?
Yes.
And every time I'd be like, it's so much more than Overcooked. Okay. It is Overcooked, but fun. And also it has like these roguelike concepts, this RNG randomizing of the restaurant. Like it gets harder, but also easier. It's not just the same fucking shit over and over. Like every run feels different. And it's so simple and basic, but in a way that allows those basic mechanics to become so in-depth.
Yeah.
To the point where like Reapz and I, when we first played it, it was, we're just cooking some steaks and stuff like that. But then when we played a little bit later, we were like, now we're not just cooking steaks. We have automated machines plating the steaks and taking them out. Ooh. We've got dirty plates being pulled on conveyor belts into dishwashers and then being unloaded onto other dishwashers and onto other things, and the clean plates going back into stacks, right?
Yeah.
There are people who got to like day 500, day 800 of playing this game in the same restaurant, and the entire thing is now automated, right? Just robots upon robots building, cooking steak or cooking lettuce and salads and stuff and sending them out to the tables automatically, doing it all. And I just feel like it was such a breath of fresh air to a genre that I didn't play very often.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that I like the idea of keeping my mind open. So while I normally play games like The Looker, that's my honorary mention. Instead, I'm going to say this year, Plate Up was so well put together. That's my surprisingly diamond in the rough game.
I think that's a fantastic pull, because it really is. When you pitched it to me, I was like, oh, it's Overcooked, like a lot of people thought when they saw it. But then just like the coordination and obviously the role play elements that come into it, because one of you is usually the cooker, one of you is usually the waiter, and you run around, and it's a lot of fun. And also I have seen people play it as a solo act. So they try and do it. So it definitely doesn't have to be co-op. It's a lot more fun co-op, I think, because you just yell at the other person. But you can play it single play. I think Nolopia was doing it. And it's just a lot of fun. And if you don't have it, and obviously, as we said, Steam sale always comes up. Give it a drop, and especially it is one of those co-op games you could play on the couch. You could literally play this on the couch. It doesn't have to be online. And that's very rare these days to have those games, because mostly you have to have your own full FOV for, shooters and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
They drop DLC for it.
Yeah.
Ooh. Does it scale with how many people are playing in the restaurant?
Yes and no. It's a bit more level affected than necessarily people affected, but yes, to a degree it does. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome.
But at the same time, I think one of the big things about it, what Reapz said there, one of the reasons why it's so much more than Overcooked or other cooking games, is you're right. Most of the time, it's like everyone is a chef and you're just putting the plates into like a receptacle that takes them out into the world. Whereas this is like, no, right down the middle we're split, and you build your restaurant, and you have to be very careful about your spacing and stuff like that. And there is someone who has to take the food and deliver the food as well, adding a whole extra thing to it.
Clean it,
and
make sure that it's still, it's.
Yep, and the floor getting dirty is both one of the most frustrating
What did we call that little
things.
fella? See, that's the thing. Like, it was just such good aspects. You named the robots, and you're like, you're part of the crew now. You're not going to get any benefits though.
Welcome to the mafia's restaurant. You know, like
God. I bought that off both your recommendations and how much fun you had. So like I'm keen to play it at some point.
It's a game you play with like your partner, and then you realize you should only play this with friends who, in case you never talk to each other again, you're okay.
No, listen, I played It Takes Two with Kirsty and never again.
No, dude, this is a whole new level. Like this is like this. Claire and I, when we do things like Overcooked, sometimes we'll yell, but not like in a mean way. But I knew that this was the kind of game I should never play with Claire ever again, when neither of us said a fucking word. Right? Because that was like, you could tell we were both just so focused and seething anytime the other person did something slightly that fucked our part of the restaurant up. And we wrapped up a thing, and I looked at her, I said, I don't think I enjoy playing this with you. And she goes, and she looks me in the eye and goes, and I do not want to play this with you either. And we went back and we picked up Mario Party and we played Mario Party instead. And that's because it is so intense that it's like, and you know each other so well. I don't know. I've been with my wife for a very long time now, and we know each other so well that when you play games like that, it is legitimately like, you fucking piece of shit. Like I put a dirty plate in the wrong spot once, and I heard it go, and I was like, oh, shit. Like, but we obviously don't. People, this is really funny though. When I say stuff like, I made these jokes on stream once, and I had all these Americans being like, "Oh, like thinking my relationship was in trouble," and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you people? Do you not have like fun with your partner?"
That's the thing. I can't imagine that of Claire, because when I met Claire, she's just this very down-to-earth, amazing, human being. And just a simple sigh from her, I know it'd be like, I fucked up, dude. I've done something. I fucked up.
Dude, legitimately, like it's a bad moment, right? There'll be times where she'll be like cooking in the kitchen, and she'll go to the cupboard, and there'll be like this moment of silence where everything stops, and I'll be like doing work on at the kitchen table or something like that, and I'll look over and I'll be like, oh shit, she's missing an ingredient. And I'll be like, hey, should I go to the store for anything? And she'll be like, yes, we need this. And I'll be like, okay, cool. Just knowing it's like that storm is there. It's like, she's not a like angry person, but it's just like,
you can see the Kindle. It's like there's an ember. And you're like, I don't want it to.
There's thunder outside. It's like,
oh no.
And that's what that kind of frustration of like spending an hour preparing a meal at home only to find out you're missing the key ingredient by accident comes out the moment you load plate up with anyone.
But it's such good fun. It honestly is. Like, you can go to that level like any kind of board game that gets you riled up, but it is a crap ton of fun, because you do just blame each other, and you're like, nah, it's definitely your fault. And then you're like, let's do it again just to make sure whose fault it was. It's very cool.
It's kind of like Pummel Party in a way, right? Like it's the kind of game you could pick up and play with your friends, and it's just over and over and endlessly a good amount of gameplay.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because like the restaurants like always randomized, and like the food's always randomized.
The layout, everything.
And as you level up, you unlock bigger restaurants or different types of restaurants and different meals to make, and you can franchise. So if you get to day 15 and beat day 15, you can franchise your restaurant, so that when you start, you just pick all those difficult cards up again and start from like a roguelike style, kind of like New Game Plus it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you, as you level up, or beat levels, you kind of win crates, and these crates you can bring with you onto your next restaurant. So one of the reasons why the Micromads and Reapz and I got so far on one of ours was I was able to bring a dishwasher from day one, because I was like level 20 at this point, just playing it alone. And so like we just brought a dishwasher, and it just changed the game.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's a big part of it, right? Is it just, and also I think we brought a spare life, which meant when we if you upset someone in this game, it ends. They wait too long to get to a table. They wait too long to get their order taken. They wait too long to get their meal taken. They wait too long to have the meal delivered. You don't clear a table, so someone's waiting outside too long. Literally, any of those things happen, the game ends, and you go right back to day one.
Wow. So it's like one life, like that's it. You got to be perfect.
It's roguelike. It is the perfect definition of a roguelike game.
Roguelike cooking. Who would have thought?
Nick, what is your diamond in the rough for 2022?
My diamond in the rough is the spiritual successor to Pikmin. It's called Tinykins. And this came out about a couple months ago now. Absolutely brilliant. The graphics for it, there's like the art style is so nice, and it very much is like the spiritual successor to Pikmin. It like this, the story isn't like super complex, but it's got a bit more of a story than what Pikmin had. But they have a really great take on it, like really great gameplay mechanics. Like it's not, you can see the similarities to sort of Pikmin, with like the little critter, like they're called the little Tinykins. But like they're very different. They have there's a lot more of a variety of different functions, and different ways that you can interact with them. It's really cool. It's very much more on the puzzle side of things. I completed the first entire area and like got all like the little like what are the collectibles or whatever, I can't remember what it's called, but the collectibles that you can get around the levels, and it was such a fun experience. All of the puzzles are really unique. Like you have to the way you can traverse around like the entire area, like it's so heckin' cool. I believe a lot of it takes place in a house, in like different rooms in a house and like things like that. It's just such a fun time. It's got fantastic humor as well.
Yeah.
It does a very, very almost like Super Smash Bros, like a challenger approaches style. Like when you discover a new Tinykins, it's got this like this really funny little animation that plays to introduce them to you. Absolutely brilliant. Very, very worth a play if you enjoy like the Pikmin style game.
It looks very cool. Like, I love the art style of it. It's very kind of like cartoon, but slash, in a 3D world.
Yeah.
And it's by Tiny Build. Oh, sorry. I should say the developers, the publisher is by Tiny Build, and they do some bangers with, Graveyard Keeper. So I'm all for giving that a look at.
And on Game Pass.
Oh, it's on Game Pass. Oh, dude, that has been the bane of my existence. Is times like I bought Scorn on Steam. Didn't realize it's free on Game Pass, did I? So then I draw like $40, and I'm like, crap.
You wasted on that, yeah. No,
it's funny. It's Somerville, I believe, releases today, and it's on Game Pass straight away. So anyone who listened to this, if you have Game Pass, you can pick it up, and I bet it's only like an hour or two.
Dude, I'm so playing that. That's Somerville. We're gonna do that. That sounds really cool. I love Pikmin. They're coming out with Pikmin 4. Is that right?
Yes, they announced Pikmin 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which will probably be ages away. But then they also, they announced that that weird like almost Pokemon Go-esque Pikmin mobile game as well, really? Which I have no idea how that's going to go, but...
I picked up Pokemon Go again. I'm enjoying it again. Yeah, I picked it up again. I stopped for a while, but anyway. So that's our diamond in the roughs. I do want to talk about.
I haven't done mine.
Something real quick. Oh, you haven't done yours?
He hasn't done yours. Yeah.
Oh, yours was Sorry, right. Yeah, go.
My diamond in the rough, which people will be like, that didn't come in 2022 because I'm trying to make mine all from 2022. It is because the last chapter was released in January, and they said now it's the full game. It is not for broadcast. If you've ever played Not for Broadcast, it's basically where you're a TV editor, I should say live TV editor, and it shows you crazy stuff happening on the screen. So basically it's a news report, and then you've got to cut away from people who are maybe flashing in the background or saying racist things, so you've got to bleep them out. And it's this whole kind of world and narrative where the people from like chapter 1 all the way through to the end of the final chapter go on this massive arc that you never thought would happen. This was made during the pandemic, so it's kind of filmed from their houses, and the developers brought it in, and you've got 4 separate screens of different angles of what's happening on the stage or on the set, and you've got to cut between them, make sure it's narrative focused, that you're cut to commercials at the right time. It is so stressful, but so fun, with an overarching theme of politics versus this rebellion. And you've got to pick a side of like, do I bring this to broadcast so that I may get fired or less things? It's very, very cool. There are different aspects that I would change. There's some like text moments in between the big narrative sections that I'd like, we can cut this down. It doesn't really add too much, but definitely give it a look at. Not for broadcast, completely unique game. And highly suggested. I think they can easily make something in the future that will appeal to a lot more people in terms of it. So yeah,
it's a really interesting FMV game. Like it's one of the most interesting that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's a good return to form for FMVs, and done in a way that's kind of, you want to see it through to the end, and very funny, very, very funny as well. So yeah, that's mine.
I think that's such a good Reapz. I gotta say, I love the surprise that I'm getting from yours because like I hear them and I'm like, yeah, that makes so much fucking sense. Because like it's like because what you're saying are amazing like games with really unique premises and concepts and stuff like that. But they really are the rough in the sense that like they're the games that like you kind of forget exist and kind of forget did it, and you're like, but they are amazing.
Can I just say to anybody who wants to do this themselves, what I've done is just gone to my Steam and done most recently played and then just scrolled all the way back through and go, I remember that one. That sticks out more than anything. So please do let us know in the comments, what is your diamond in the rough? What is your game of the year? Because I'm like LJ and like Nick, I'll be very interested to see if there's ones that I haven't played that I'm like, I could find myself a whole new genre right here.
Yeah, and
well, it's really there you go.
Oh, so I was going to say, we're trying to utilize the YouTube polls a bit more as well. So we could also do a YouTube poll for our suggestions for Game of the Year in Diamond in the Rough and see what everyone else thinks of our suggestions.
That's a great idea. That's a very good idea. Love that. Love that.
I was looking at the nominations, obviously, and we've been having a big conversation about it in my Discord, the LJ Discord, because I have been openly for the last couple of years of streaming, whenever the Game of the Year or Game of the Awards come up, or whenever I play a game, I usually review it quickly at the end of the thing and give it ratings and stuff like that, which has meant that my whole community has kind of become this like discussion board where we talk about the games we loved and didn't like and stuff like that. And this is where we really get heated in the Discord around this time of year, when we start talking about this stuff. But we're kind of all in agreement this year that it seems like it's a little bit of a rough one because like the Game of the Year nominations we'll talk about in a little bit, but I want to talk about indie noms, right, really quick, because we've talked a lot about them, right? But the best debut is what I want to talk about, which means the devs had to have created, like, this is their independent studio. This is the game they launched with. Here are the nominations. Neon White, which I am pretty confident not a single other person has played. It's essentially a kind of time trial, deck building, card playing, first person leaping, Mirror's Edge kind of fucking Slay the Spire, right? Which is a lot of words, but it's really good. But it's also never going to win because it's all anime characters and the dialogue and story is really cringe, right? Norco, which is really interesting because it's kind of like a text-based adventure, so that'll never win, which sucks. Stray, which I feel like personally debut indie. I don't I don't know how I feel about that being in debut indie compared to Neon White and Norco, and Tunic is also in there. Like, it feels really unfair to have Stray be amongst this category of game because, like, yeah, the studio technically it's their first game, but let's be real. And then Vampire Survivor, which I'm not sure if you guys picked up or checked out, but Vampire Survivor.
I wanted
is
to
this
play
from the Game Awards or is this something different?
This is the Game Awards, but I'm looking at best debut indie, not best.
Okay,
indie.
sorry, my bad. Yep.
That's all right. Yeah. So debut specifically because I think that best indie. I'm starting to feel like best indie needs to be like almost written as best AAA indie, which is weird to say, but like it's become a much bigger space in the industry now, right? Like,
it opens up the conversation of if they're being published by a well-known publisher like Devolver or Annapurna, like does it enter the realm of like almost AA in that sense?
And it's also like, do the developers have a shitload of experience before doing this? You know what I mean? It's like I can understand being like, oh, they've made one or two games and they broke away to make their very first game that they created, and that's like, yeah, cool. Like, I think Tunic is pretty much that, and I think Neon White is similar. But even the problem is, Neon White was also published by Annapurna. It's just the development team was so small. So I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard conversation to have. Not saying black or white, yes or no, just a whole conversation to have.
Yeah.
But a game that I think really got overlooked this year because it's kind of an offshoot of Vampire Survivor, which if you didn't pick it up is like you start the run, you have to survive until Dracula comes, and it's like looking down, like old school kind of top down, en masse enemies coming at you, bullet hell, everything's happening, all the upgrades you get, slowly you're wiping out huge waves of enemies. But a game that got overlooked because it's kind of an offshoot of it was 20 Minutes Till Dawn.
Okay.
Which has beautiful art style, really interesting characters, interesting dynamics, really cool stuff. And the idea is that every run only takes about 20 minutes to complete.
20 minutes till done. Gotcha.
I love that concept as well, by the way. Like a 20-minute game, in, out, sweet.
Love it.
Roguelike as well, or no, it is roguelike. I was going to say roguelite. And there's a lot of stuff this year that I just feel like will get really heavily overlooked despite them being really amazing. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit frustrated. And I think I talked about this last year, why I was frustrated when Road 96 wasn't even anywhere close to the Game Awards. And it was just like so inherently strange to see games that were like almost AAA titles being included in indie when games like Road 96 weren't even put involved or considered it.
That's a shame.
Like,
Road 96 was great.
It's honestly, it's one of the best gameplay experiences of my life, right? Like, but I don't know. I just feel like I wanted to mention that because a lot of our Diamond in the Rough are very much indie, right? They're not, so,
Modern Warfare 2 is my Diamond in the Rough. I reckon they could go places, this COD. Yeah.
Oh, dude. A good honorable mention though, which I've been reminded of because I was looking at who developed some other ones. Is I don't know if you guys ever saw it, Chicory. Did you guys see Chicory?
I've heard of it. I
watched you play a lot of Chicory, and it was a really enjoyable experience to watch, and I can only imagine how much it was to play as well.
It was so much fun to play, and the rough story of it is essentially the whole world has lost color, and every page is kind of a black, like a white space with all the black lines, like a coloring book would be.
Cool.
So every kind of zone has different colors, and you get a paintbrush and all sorts of stuff, and you kind of paint the world, and you solve puzzles and stuff with the painting, and you do a story. And the kind of concept is around the idea of an artist's journey to not just paint what other people want and to paint what you love and bring your own unique voice to it.
That sounds nice.
There's the wielder, who is the person who gets the paintbrush, and every time the paintbrush is given to someone else, the world loses all the color, and that wielder is able to bring color to the world, right, and bring their own art to it. So you're the next wielder, and the next wielder has so much anxiety and struggles so much with what they're doing, and that's a big part of it. Every zone has lost all its color, and you're literally playing through this, and you can kind of feel personally and the emotions that the character is feeling, because you, every time you go to a new screen, are overwhelmed with this concept of, I have to make this look nice.
Yeah.
Right? Which is the whole concept of the story, really, is dealing with your own self-doubt and your own pressure to make something look good. And it was so well done that I actually got really close to the end and I had to stop playing because I was actually feeling too much pressure to make the world look good.
Right.
Which was I've never experienced that, where they've done such a good job to put that pressure on, which is both a criticism and a compliment in a way, because I really wish I did finish it. But I was only like one boss away from finishing the whole thing. And I remember getting to this whole new zone, walking in, there being no color, and being like, I just spent 30 minutes on the last screen.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. Like, I spent 30 minutes on the last screen. I can't do another one, and I had to just put it down.
What was the name of the game again? Sorry?
Chicory. Chicory. A colorful tale, I believe.
Lovely. I'm just thinking if I edit in the things just to have that. Yeah.
I guess
It's so unique.
Yeah. I guess those sentiments kind of lean into the fact of the discussion of how important it can be sometimes to pace yourself on a game and not just kind of like blow through it in one go. Like, kind of once you recognize a point where you're like, okay, I've had enough for this session, I'm going to put it down and come back to it another day. When you're kind of more refreshed and you're like ready to kind of do, even if it's little bit repetitive, you're a bit more willing to do it because you've had that break.
Yeah, I think that leans in as well to what we've kind of been saying throughout this whole podcast, that people may be like, what do you mean? And that's when we've been saying that this is a stream game or this is not a stream game. And I think before we go into like, the good and the bad of games being released, I think we should obviously clarify in terms of what we mean when we say that this is definitely a stream game for us, while this one is definitely not a stream game. Like, what are the reasons we think makes a good game to play that people will be kind of enamored with? Because the other day, I started playing the sequel to A Plague Tale Requiem, and this may have been just my headspace. I was in the wrong headspace, but I was just getting really annoyed at the stealth section of the game, as well as the current whispering. Was every time that I died or had to retry, the same dialogue then started again. It made me just go, oh God, I got to hear this fucking whispering. And then I had to hide under a bed for like 5 minutes when the patrol just kept going the same way and I didn't know when to leave. And it just really bothered me. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad game. This was just, again, a complete mental headspace. But I think that when you enjoy the game that you play and you see people actually talking more in the chat, that doesn't have to be, like, talking doesn't say that they're not enjoying it. But I do feel like when I play I'm on observation duty or things like that, even though it's a solo player experience, people still pipe in because they like what they're seeing and they're like, did you do this? Did you do this? While when I was playing a game, let's just say like I played Total Requiem, it was more, let's sit back, relax and see how far he gets. And it just doesn't feel like a interactive stream that I want to do. Yeah.
No, I like that. I think it makes sense. And I think a really important thing will be as well that like, I'm sure someone will write, I can't believe you didn't enjoy streaming that. I love streaming that.
Yeah.
And I think an important thing to say is no one person is going to have the perfect stream games and you compared to you, right? Like,
correct.
I think there are people who loved streaming The Witcher. In fact, like some of my mates, like Shalaluya, loved streaming The Witcher. But for me, those big story games, I don't like streaming them because I go quiet during the cutscene, sit back, and I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. And then my chat dies, and I go, okay, well, that's not really what I'm after, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm more of an interactive content creator who just wants to stream stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that'll be a big thing for me. I'll just clarify when I talk about something. If I talk about a game in the good and bad gameplay loops, I'll just say good for stream, bad for not. Otherwise, it's too hard for me, I think, to set a category.
Yeah. Agreed. Nick, do you find that like there's games, because I think Eljay hit it on the head for me. I'm an interactive streamer. And if chat's not like, shouldn't say popping off, but if they're not like being very communicative in the chat, I'm like, well, what am I really doing this for? Because I like that kind of back and forth.
I absolutely feel that. And it's one of the reasons why, and I've had, since I sort of started niching more into Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been seeing this comment pop up more and more, which has made me very happy and give me a lot of warm fuzzies, is a lot of people who aren't that interested in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or don't really know what's going on, they still say they enjoy coming into the stream and watching me play because I make it fun. And like over time, they kind of get an idea of, things that are going on. And that's just due to like my style of being an interactive streamer. Like whatever's happening, I will try my best to make it fun, make it interactive, get the chat involved. And that goes over to everything. And when you have like a really, heavy story game like that, it can be really, really tough. I kind of hit that with, this last Wednesday, started with some Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I played Harvestella, which just came out last week, which is one of the bazillion farming games that came out on the Switch. This one's very much like anime styles. It's like if you took Stardew and just Final Fantasy-ified it, which is an interesting concept. It's actually decent. EO really enjoyed it as well. But at the start of the game, like it's a good 2 hours of just lots of dialogue and things going on, and you don't get a lot of freedom to really do much and try and get a feel for your own gameplay loop. Like I said, 2 hours in, so it's got that rough start, but once you kind of get over that hurdle, you kind of get over that. But for that first 2 hours is really rough, where it was just me in chat just kind of witnessing what's going on, not really being able to interact with the game itself, but you're not really being able to interact in general. And so everyone's just kind of sitting there passively. So I know the feeling, and it's a lot more fun, and you're able to keep bouncing off the chat as they're moving and being more interactive, which just loops and creates a better experience for everyone.
Yeah, it makes me more energetic, I find, and I prefer being energetic on stream rather than just passive. And I know that, don't get me wrong, there's those amazing streamers that are just chill streamers. They can play for 10 hours a day, very laid back, and people really enjoy that. And I enjoy going into them. But for me, that's just not my personality type when it comes to streaming. I prefer some sort of next level energy. And so that's what you have to bring. And some games just don't represent what you want to bring. For instance, if you are a chilled out streamer and you're playing Modern Warfare 2 for 10 hours, I don't think a lot of people want that. They want those, let's go, fucking boys, kind of craziness. So that's what I guess what I'm to infer is that, as you said, Eljay, people are going to be in the comments, I had a great time streaming that game. How could you not enjoy streaming that game? I guess it's the different type of streams that we bring.
Also, weirdly, audience size is a big part of it as well.
True.
When you're really small and you've only got 10, 15 people who are really loyal, which when you're smaller, you do have much more loyal viewers.
Yeah, definitely.
Then you could sit there and play Witcher for 50 hours and you'll be fine because those 10, 15 are really loyal. You know what I mean? But when you're at 110, 120, those people become a little less loyal because they not loyal is the wrong word, but they don't feel as like they need to be there to support you because there's 150 other
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So it can be a bit different. But with that being said, on to the next category. I would love to know, over the last year, what is a feature, concept, what is something people keep putting in games? What is something about gaming that you feel like has just been awful? Like, I want to start on this one because I want to wrap on what we loved and what things have gotten really good. And if you want an example, I think this last year has taught me that developers are really bad at creating a good open world experience. Okay? And that's because they always fall short in some place, right? A big example of that, despite the fact that I do love Elden Ring, is I think that the open world experience there lacks a lot of intuition. Okay? I think that they want you to be immersed, fall into the story. There's constantly things to find and explore. But after that first part of it, you do start to feel lost, right? And people say, oh, just ignore the golden map quest marker things, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, we can ignore those, but that doesn't change the fact that there's not one big location that calls out to you and feels like you should go there. You know what I mean? And I think a good example of this, what I talked about ages ago, was Breath of the Wild. You get to the middle and you can see the big locations. There's Death Mountain, there's the Hyrule Fields, there's Hyrule Castle, there's the desert. And these locations you can see from so far away, they call to you, right? They don't tell you have to go there. In fact, you can completely ignore them. But if you are just going off into the big open world, you never feel lost in the way that feels directionless. You feel lost in a way that's immersive. And I feel like for me, even when I play Elden Ring offline now, I still feel like that game missed a beat in terms of giving you a well-designed world in the sense that you don't feel directionless. In fact, I feel like in Elden Ring, I'm directionless more often than not, which I think comes from the fact that Souls games inherently used to be quite linear, with Souls 1, 2, and 3 and Bloodborne and stuff like that being very much boss rush, move between, do the things. Whereas this was obviously their big first attempt at going full open world.
Right.
And I think that because they did that, it did mean that they hadn't quite had the experience yet to create something like that. You know what I mean? Oh, sorry, Siri's talking. I don't know. So that's something that I feel like in the last few years, last year I've really struggled with, is going into how the fact that every game feels like it has to be some form of open world.
Yeah.
But they always miss a beat or miss a step really badly. And Stray, trying to be semi-open world, missed the beat that Elden Ring got really well, which was everything was interactable. Everything, you could go in deep to everything. Oh, that's some old ruins. There will be something there.
Yeah.
But Stray, every single door is locked. Go fuck yourself. It's like,
I dislike this trend over the past few years that bigger is better. Like, there's just been this like arms race of who's got the bigger open world in their game, and they're like, oh, because it's so big, it's like amazing. And that was probably impressive, like maybe the first year of that, right? Kind of like being, getting this point where like hardware's getting better, developers getting better, the engine's getting better, and optimizations as well. So like they're able to build these bigger worlds, and it can really feel amazing. I mean, look at Skyrim, like back in like 2011. But there was also, but then you run into the problem, which, and a lot of people had as well. It's like sometimes, like when you go too big, then the world doesn't feel as alive. You want to be in that living, breathing world and feel like you're immersed in it. But then it's more of just like an environment with just not much happening in it. And there's just big chunks of time or big chunks of space where there's just nothing, and it's just environment that you're walking through. And for some areas and for some games that can work, but more often than not, it doesn't. So it's just that's something I've just disliked a lot. But I think and AAA in general has just fumbled over and over the last few years. The chase for making live services, the chase for making battle royales. Like, again, some franchises make sense, but just in general, it's just this big chase for battle royales and live services. I think has just made like the games suffer, and it's only happened at the AAA, where you got all of these indies and sort of like AA games that are just focused on making good gaming experiences, Whereas you have the masses, I think, they're just playing their Call of Duties, their Fortnite, Apex, and Apex is good, but you know what I mean? Like just kind of those kinds of games, and no one's really going out there and discovering these, like even bothering to try and discover these games. And so it's just a shame. But like, because we really are in this like indie renaissance where the top end is sort of crumbling, and you have a flood of so many of these new developers, like especially a lot of like industry veterans and industry names and talent. They've left all of these big studios to start their own smaller studios, and like in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of the fruits of their labor from when they've separated. So I'm so excited, especially and yes, Xbox is a big platform, but like all of the studios that they've bought as well. Like I can't wait to see all of the games that they'll finally be releasing since the acquisitions.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of there's no worse feeling in a game than being directionless. When you're just kind of spinning on your axis and you're like, I could do this, I could do that. Well, I feel with good open world games, you know where you need to go, right? You know what the mission is, and you're compelled to continue on with the story and the side quests and everything because you want to see that ending. You want to see a result, as we talked about earlier. When it is that thing of like, well, I know that what's going to happen for the next X amount of hours is I have to go to somewhere over here, slay a lot of enemies, but whoops, got it wrong. I now have to go back this way, slay the same amount of enemies, and then I can finally get to what I was supposed to do. Because I find that like every time that I used to go into gaming as a kid and everything, I had all the time in the world to be like, okay, I can study up on this, go in there, I can do like 5 hours, 6 hours. But now it's kind of like, well, I've got 2 hours free. You hop into a game, you go into the actual open world, and you're like, what was I supposed to do? Where was I supposed to go next? And then you just kind of, fuck it, I don't know. I'll just play something that I actually know what I can, understand a bit more.
Reggie from Nintendo, before he obviously retired, said something like, if it's not fun, why bother?
Yeah.
Which, if we're, granted, that's obviously simplifying because not every game is meant to give you, oh, this is so fun. Some games are supposed to be immersive, emotional experiences. But at the same time, I don't think he's saying every game needs to be fun. He's saying, if you don't enjoy in some form what you're doing, right? You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you're saying there, right? It's like, I don't want to be directionless and grind through enemies, then go back and forth and everything.
When you get to there are some games, I think I'll sum it up for people who are like, what do you mean? There's some bosses in games where you don't have the equipment ready to fight them. You're just going to get one hit and die. You know what I mean? So what you've got to do is you've got to grind in the forest to XP up and then finally have enough money to buy said armor that you can finally verse said boss and it'll actually be even playing field. I don't like those grindy type of games because to me it's just like I'm now doing the same thing. I'm pressing X and then A to jump away, X to slash, A to jump away over and over again just so that I can finally progress in the game, even though they should have given me this earlier because they're literally just wasting time so they can space out that it's a 70-hour game. You're going to be so immersed. I just hate that shit.
I think that another one is that what you're saying there is really interesting because I think there are a lot of games. I think almost every game has grinding in it. But what's really interesting is that if the gameplay is enjoyable, you don't notice that you're grinding before a boss.
Yeah.
You're just enjoying playing a game, right? And I think that was one of the failures of Call to the Lamb was that it was very, very, very fun to start with, but then I think that everyone who played that game got to a point where they were like, oh, I've got to do another dungeon to get these bones.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I met a single person who didn't have slight hesitation or frustration with the combat later on, having to constantly redo it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you notice what you're saying there is like the dungeons in Call of the Lamb, at least for me, were the grinding in the forest, all right? But in Arceus, there's all this stuff you have to do before you go fight these bosses and all these kind of things. But because the gameplay was enjoyable, running around, exploring, catching mons and stuff like that, it didn't feel like the grinding in the forest. It just felt like enjoying the gameplay.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think is a really interesting concept because I know people will hear you say, oh, he doesn't like any kind of grinding, but he loves this game.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, you don't understand. It's when it feels like you're grinding in the forest and you don't want to. The moment you think to yourself, I have to do that again, is when you know a game has probably pushed its limit a little bit and is stretching.
You know what a great game for me is that is grinding, but I didn't realize it at the time? Arkham City. Dude, I love
yes.
the Arkham City series. You've got to grind in that. You've got to like do the Riddler, trophies and everything like that. And people say the combat's, you just X to dodge and all this kind of stuff. But I loved it. I love seeing the different animations, getting those combos up there, trying, breaking arms and stuff. I was like, this is sick. This is so sick, right? And when I play other games where it is kind of like Cult of the Lamb, as you said, LJ, it's like, okay, what weapon do I get this time? Oh, the axe. Oh, dude, not the axe. I got to now wait 2 seconds for it to swing, so I got to attack from here. It just felt like a grind after a while, and that's kind of what made me not really go back to it as much.
It's so funny too, because all the weapons in that game, every time I talk to people, they all say kind of the same thing. The only thing is like no one ever complains about the sword.
Yeah.
But you always hear people be like, oh, the axe, oh, it's so slow. Or they'll go, oh, the dagger, I gotta be too close to them. Or it's like, oh, the hammer, oh, the fucking gloves. And it's like, okay, so nobody likes, nobody can agree that all these weapons have their own fun concept, but except for the sword. That's a problem, right? Where same with Hades in a way. When you look at it, it's like, different compared to Hades though, where it's like everyone enjoys trying out every weapon. They may not like every weapon, but they'll be like, I'll do a polearm run, sure, I'll give it a go. I'll do a shield run. I'll do a gun run. Like, I feel like every weapon in Hades gives you something new and it makes you excited to try it out, and you feel fun adapting to it. But Cult of the Lamb was like, oh, not the dagger. Please, not the dagger.
And that's the key point, LJ, is choice. You get a choice.
Yes.
Compared to Cult. And I think, I don't know if this would entirely fix it, but I think if the game, because like at the beginning, the game it very sort of like tunnels you into building certain things to kind of get your cult started, and then you can get a lot of choices to what you build next. I think having the missionary, like a basic form of like the missionary at the very beginning, would have helped so much, because then you can start sending your cult members out and and getting those resources, so you don't feel like you have to grind and go back to that specific dungeon because only that dungeon has like the bones, or only this one has like the crystals that you need. So like that would have made it a lot more, just less grindy feeling, I think.
Well, it was the bones thing, right? Because you cannot get bones anywhere else, but rituals are such a crucial part of the gameplay that it's like they literally were like, oh shit, this is my thing, right? I feel like with Cult of the Lamb, it's such a fun game, but it's very clear almost that there was a moment for the developers where they were like, none of our playtesters are running the dungeon. They're just doing the cult management.
Yeah.
How do we get them into the dungeon to make it so that this game has more to it? And some guy at the back was like, why don't we just make it that this key feature in the rituals, they have to constantly grind dungeons to get. Everything else they can get anywhere else and do whatever they want. But this one particular thing, the bones, they have to do. And the guy was like, yeah, genius. Like, it's amazing. It makes so much sense. And it doesn't feel like it connects the two sides of it's like the left and the right brain, and they're not like talking at all.
Yeah. And it does feel like two separate games or mini games within the sole game.
It doesn't help the fact that you're even more hesitant to go to the dungeons because your cult just goes to shit like as soon as you leave.
Immediately.
There is no reward when you beat a dungeon and get to the final moment. There is no reward to extend the run. There's that thing where you can extend the run, but it's like, why would I extend the run when I can see my cult needs me to go back there and do a fuckload of management right now, or else the whole thing's gonna fall apart. Like it's like, whereas in Moonlighter, it's like, hey, you beat the final section. Would you like to extend the run and try like get more loot and stuff? Yeah, because the shop won't open until I get back there and go to bed and start the next day. Like it encourages you to actually push your limits, and the risk comes with losing all of your stuff rather than losing all of your work at your fucking management cult. Like it's Cult of the Lamb, so much fun, such a cool concept. But there's just these executions that make it so brutal compared to games of a similar genre, like Hades, like Moonlighter, and other things.
Yeah. You mentioned it briefly before, Reapz. We talked about like the hour span of a game. That's actually another thing that I think a lot of like AAA has also been chasing as well, thinking that by putting this big number of like, oh, it's got this many hours of gameplay and this and that, like it just makes, it's like this mental sort of gymnastics to make consumers feel like it's like worth the price tag. But when a majority of those hours are not as enjoyable, or you have to grind, or there's a lot of frustrations, then it's pointless. Like they purposely will try to draw things out, or put in unnecessary sequences and that kind of thing, just to, get some extra like game time on there, which was just not necessary. And a lot of these indie games that we've spoken about, right? They're like shorter experiences. Like they're either 1 to 2 hours long, or they're kind of in like that 15-hour, 20-hour realm, which I think is great, especially with everyone's lives, like the constant fight for like our
Free time.
eyeballs between subscription services and gaming as well, with all the amount of games that exist. And another reason why live services are so, just everywhere, because they're like, oh, we can hook them in. We can be like, you got to play this week to earn this reward type thing. But I just want to be able to have an experience I can play at my own pace.
And remember what you're doing, because that to me is the big thing. But we have talked about, obviously, open worlds. Nick, what was your kind of worst thing about games the past few years?
Probably the game time thing, I'd say, and just the fact that everyone is trying to just make a live service instead of just making a game. Just make us like we, I think that was one of the reasons why Fallen Order was like, there was so much hype around it, because it was like, holy crap, it's a game with a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's just unheard of, because everyone's just making multiplayer, or just trying to incorporate microtransactions into everything, and this because of the big publishers, the decisions from the top. And so that's been my biggest frustration, is the fact that we as a gaming community are calling for more just experiences. Like, we want to buy a game and play it and finish it, right? There's sometimes you can make a cool multiplayer game like Apex or anything like that. But just give us a good experience from start to finish. That's what all of us want.
And it's a story thing, right? We don't necessarily want a story, but a really good story. We want a beginning, middle, and end, in the same way that people are frustrated with the Mr. Beastification of YouTube as well, right? They're tired of I put 10 million Orbeez in a pool and ate them. You know what I mean? It's like people that was fine. That we liked that. It was interesting and new. That's what all these live services were, interesting and new. But at a certain point, we kind of want to go back to, hey guys, it's me again, and I want to play today, and I want to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to be a really fun game, right? And people are like, woo, okay, cool.
Isn't it funny? It is. It's kind of like doing a scientific theory. It's like, here's what my premise is. Here's what I think the outcome will be. Here's what the actual result is. And that to me is so much more rewarding than it is just kind of like, I know that you clicked here to see $10 million be given away to somebody that's not you, and here it is, blah, 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 kind of like machine gun shots. But I would say, for my worst feature that has come out over the past few years when it comes to gaming, is what we touched on a bit before, Nick, especially. And this is not new, and I'm not going to say that this is, but it's the cosmetic functionality that has overridden games. So for instance, we see a lot of games coming out that are free to play, and you're like, great, awesome, love it, fantastic. Then you see the prices that come with the battle pass or the cosmetic skins, and it is in your face that if you buy one skin, you're like, okay, that's $20, right? And they're more focused on pushing that than the actual gameplay within it, like the bugs, the fixes, the OP nature of certain heroes, for instance, when it comes to Overwatch 2.
Say Overwatch 2, mate.
I'm going to say Overwatch 2.
Just say Overwatch 2.
And Modern Warfare 2.
Hey, man, don't worry. Both those games are nominated Game of the Year for Best Multiplayer.
Of course they are. Of course
How is Overwatch... I'm going to say it. How is Overwatch 2, which is a worse Overwatch 1, nominated for Best Multiplayer? What?
It's because it's Activision Blizzard, of course. It's like the Oscars. They're just the biggest AAA devs, and they're like, put us in there, and like, all right.
I can ask, for Best Multiplayer, is Splitgate mentioned at all anywhere in the Game Awards?
Not for... That came out years ago.
Splitgate's been out... Oh, no, it didn't come out this year. That's good.
It was last year.
That came out. That came out years ago now.
Was it last year? Okay, never mind.
You're forgetting that Halo came out years ago. They've just done nothing with it.
That's true. I will say, though, they have said, like, they're going to... Like, the devs are working on the next, like, iteration of Splitgate. And
here we go. Sorry, go.
I was like, even though it didn't come out this year, it's just... That's another game that, essentially was doing Halo better than Halo. It's like, we're going to give you Halo, and then we're going to give everybody a portal gun.
Yeah.
And then just go ham. And if you haven't played Splitgate, it is a super, super fun multiplayer game that literally just lives and breathes like the feel of Halo. Even all the guns feel familiar. Like they did,
It's
like they
so
do.
fast paced as well. Like
Yeah, but it's great.
But that's the thing about it is like before, when you're on like an arena map and the arena map's quite big and you see someone from say, let's just say 100 meters away, you're like, I got to sprint all the way over there because I don't have a sniper. I've got like an SMG. So you're like, but with Splitgate, you're like portal here, portal there. You jump through the portal, you snipe them behind and you just give them the assassination. Oh, it feels so good because you can just traverse that map so easily, which is great. For your information, Nick, for the Game Awards, these are the nominees. We're going to talk about this more next week, but Call of Duty, obviously, Multiverses, Overwatch 2, Splatoon 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge. So those are the best multiplayer nominees.
What a weird lineup of multiplayer, right?
I hope Splatoon 3 wins it.
Or Ninja Turtles. Like bring on the Ninja Turtles.
That would be great. That'll be fantastic.
It is just such a confusing lineup for best multiplayer. Like for outstanding online multiplayer gameplay design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of game or genre or platform. Okay, so how? Like I'm sorry, but like how? Like Played Up should be on there then.
Yep.
Right? Like that's a co-op, and it Played Up crushes most of this shit.
But just look at the names apart from, because I think they had the thing of like, we've got to put the big games in. So we've got to do Nintendo, Blizzard, Warner Brothers Games, and Activision, right? So that's what they put in there. And then they're like, oh, we need to give it to the indie devs. And what's the most? Oh, TMNT. Yeah, people love TMNT. So let's give it over to Shredder's Revenge, a couch co-op where you can beat them up online. It's so weird. It really is just like fan service.
Apparently my Apple Watch just told me that my heart rate and noise warning spiked. It just popped up being like, your heart rate has just raised by 40 BPM in the last 2 minutes. Are you okay?
Ranting, there's a rant incoming. A rant notification.
Go.
I was like, I almost feel like there should be a Game Awards separate that doesn't include any AAA. Like it's just purely like AA and indies.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of these games, like even if they're terrible, they'll still get nominated because they're popular and they're from like a big AAA dev or AAA publisher.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. I mean, we know it's just it's service to the companies and it's service to the fans that obviously have the biggest player base. So they're like, these are the ones that we're going to put on there because it's going to get the most interest and people want to see their game win when these awards come out, like it means anything.
You know what was a really good game that came out a while ago that I feel like it was tough. It was a really, really tough one, but I like adored Back 4 Blood. And I feel like a lot of people really didn't enjoy Back 4 Blood. I understand one of the reasons why people didn't enjoy it, though. People didn't enjoy it because they were trying to jump into it solo and play with either bots or with randoms. And it's like, it is so much more fun to jump into a game like that with 3 mates and you've got your squad of 4, because it's a Left 4 Dead spiritual successor.
Yep.
But they didn't just rip. They could have just ripped the concept of Left 4 Dead and done that. But instead it was like, look, it's zombies. There are 4 of you, but we're going to add to it. We're going to change it up. We're going to make it more interesting. And it felt more like going on. Left 4 Dead feels like you're playing, a pretty normal video game, whatever. But Back 4 Blood to me kind of felt like going on an amusement park ride with 4 friends.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing all of the Left 4 Dead stuff, but then there's a giant fucking ogre, you know what I mean? And it's like, or like, oh shit, now we're doing this other big exciting thing. Or like it was a cinematic concept, right? To play with your mates and you're all screaming because one of you's been picked up by literally something that's bigger than a skyscraper, right? And it was just great. It was just really, really fun to play. But a lot of people just weren't a huge fan of it. The deck building in it was great as well.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know, every time you beat a level or sometimes during a level, you can find cards. And one of the best things about it was you literally build decks that go along with the characters, and the characters actually have different like skills that inherently are with it. So like I was playing a guy who was really good at regenerating stamina. So I built an entire deck that was entirely stamina based. And then I built another deck, which was just a complete troll deck where it was purely coins.
Yeah.
Everything I did spawned more coins. Everything I did got me more coins. And everything I did would boost it. And I became this money bags, bankrolling my entire team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was useless in a fight, but it's fine. I don't know. I think there are a lot of games, sadly, that kind of like, they just really kind of miss out, sadly. And it just feels weird to look at best multiplayer. I can understand Splatoon 3 being there. That's awesome. Overwatch 2, is clearly they're just servicing Blizzard, as you said. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, literally the exact same. And Multiversus, I can understand it.
I
But
can
also
understand Multiversus.
Here's my question. How long do you have to wait to queue into a game of online Multiversus right now? Because I feel like that's probably a very telling sign of a game's health. Granted, Overwatch 2 and Modern Warfare 2, maybe not, but a game like Multiversus lives and dies on how quickly you get into that game with other people.
Yep.
That's true.
And I'm just curious if it really is as big as it is, or if it's a Warner Brothers based game.
Yeah.
I haven't played it. I've wanted to though. It definitely like the Nickelodeon one seemed like a bit of a cash grab, but from what I sort of was hearing about Multiverses, it seemed a lot more in depth in terms of like creating like, you know, the whole like everyone's moves and how they sort of all interact. It was that they put a bit more time and effort into it than the Nickelodeon one, which was just kind of one that came out, was a bit of fun, and then they just kind of swept that one under the rug. Whereas Multiverses is kind of sticking around because it's genuinely a decent fighting game. Like they actually brought in some. They did in the trailer. They didn't mention what game it was, but basically they brought in some Smash like pro players to play Multiverses, and they actually genuinely enjoyed it.
That's good.
Unless they were paid a lot of money to say that they were enjoying it.
maybe they were.
Yeah, because it is Warner Brothers, but you know, but like I said, it seemed like it was interesting. So,
but did you want to move on, LJ, to the next bit of your question of the
Which
games?
was, what parts of games have you absolutely adored recently? What have you been finding is just ridiculously fun? What have you been really, really, really getting into? I might hold off on mine here.
Okay.
Because I feel like I've been going a little bit, railroading a little bit.
No.
So how about one of you guys can start us off about what is something in the last year of gaming that you've just really clicked with?
I had it in my head and now it's completely gone. So Nick, if you've got yours, please.
So it's sort of, I'll give you a moment. I'll vent for a little bit. I'm still kind of forming it in my head. But I think
gave you guys like 4 days notice.
I
didn't write it down. I'm so sorry. Oh God.
I think we've seen more like interesting concepts smashed together. Like, okay, like, you know, there's a lot of them that are being overdone, but I think there's just more, we're just getting more different types of games, like really vastly different stuff, right? Like when Phasmophobia dropped, that was it was like, oh, this is kind of a different take on 4-player sort of co-op sort of survival-esque type thing, right? Like it was a fresh idea, it was really different.
It was, yes. Phasmo was very fresh in the ghosting, hunting, and genre and stuff.
Yeah. And then you've got things like Pentiment, which is from Obsidian, which came out recently as well. So that's the 2D like the sort of 1600s like art game, set in the 1600s. Which is like it's a murder mystery, and your choices have impact on the story. And when you get to the end of the game, I haven't played it. This is I was in part of a briefing for Pentiment. And when you get to the end of the game, like you won't know until you make your decision of who the murderer is, if it actually is or not. Like you genuinely have to use your brain cells to try and find all the clues and figure it out. And you pick like a background at the start of the game, and that actually impacts the types of people you get friendly with, or the types of like buildings and places you get access to. It's such a really fresh and interesting concept. And Obsidian is, you know, they've obviously made a bunch of great games in the past, but it was such a wild idea that came out of them. So I think we've just seen more experimentation in the past few years, and that's probably the thing that I love the most.
I
think that's a great take, to be honest. I think that
there
is a lot of people combining things, which is a really good example of that. A few other things that are good examples are the roguelike combination of Inscription meeting so many other genres as well was another really good one. You could also say like other games, for example, we talked about Back 4 Blood a second ago. That also combines 2 genres of deck building and other stuff. Really what I'm saying is every game is just adding deck building now. But no, I think you're right. I think people are much more likely to take risks, combine things, and try new things out, which is really interesting. But also, it's been cool to see what has and hasn't really worked. You know what I mean? Like the Cult of the Lamb is obviously such a big example of how they wanted to combine 2 genres, and it just didn't really they just kind of missed a little bit. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I like that. That's a really good point. The last year or so of gaming has really led to a lot of ingenuity and fresh ideas.
I think
If you're playing the
well,
maybe not the AAA, but if
Yeah.
you're playing
Yeah. I actually just quickly, something idea popped in my head. Do you think it would have been even more fun, extra fun, if instead of you being the one to go into the dungeons and fight and stuff, you were sending your cult members to go out and fight and do a lot of those tasks, and like it was like a general focus of like the management, but also
I mean, that's kind of the point eventually of games where you do sim like that. The point eventually is that you shouldn't have to do much and you can just do the fun parts, right? The whole concept of games like Moonlighter, Factorio, all these ones where you're building something up is you're supposed to start out as the guy cutting the trees down. And then eventually you are no longer that person. You just get to reap all the rewards and just only do the things that you actually enjoyed of it. If you want to run dungeon run, you can still dungeon run, but you don't have to.
I think
so. I think but I don't think straight away. But I think yes, if you could get to a point where you could give off the annoying parts, yes, 100%.
I think it would be great because when you do get new kind of members into your cult and it goes, this person has this bad trait and they also have this good trait. Wouldn't it be awesome if they had this person's good with the dagger, this person's not good with this magic, and then you send them in and you've got the choice of doing RNG, the computer controls it while you're doing sim, or you can control your cult member. And if they die, it's because of you being terrible with them. That would be sick. That'd be a great idea. Yeah.
Obviously, they sort of have it with the missionary stuff, but I feel like that's not really what we're saying.
Well,
we're saying
you just send them away. You can't control them. Yeah.
I actually like that idea of like you playing as the cult member.
The cult member.
If they die, like they're just dead, and then you've lost that person because
and they also
you
have
failed.
different attributes and negatives to them. So every time that you go into a new dungeon, you've got these different attributes. You're like, oh, I'm really good at this. I'm really shit at magic, though. Yeah.
It's a little Rogue Legacy. If you ever played Rogue Legacy, and they just released 2 earlier this year, where it's like the idea is your kids. Your kids are who's your next character, and like they all randomize, and you can pick like, Sir, which of your 3 children do you want? Sir Jonathan, Sally, Big Tits, and you pick them, right? And there's all these different ones and stuff. That's like literally part of it. Like a lot of the jokes can actually be a bit like that. But
wow.
So yeah, I think that's cool, right? Like running into a dungeon and having your randomized attributes and having to build yourself around it and make it work is a cool concept. And I don't think again, it all comes back to the exact same thing. There are some things where RNG works and some things where RNG is just removing the freedom the player should be allowed. And I think Cult of the Lamb, in order to increase the length of the gameplay and increase the difficulty, they chose to put RNG in places where it's just removing creativity and freedom. Yeah. And that's the way you don't get to control your build whatsoever, like at all. Like you buy a tarot card, you just have a big deck. You have to hope that it comes through. And if there's one thing I am sure of is that I never like having a big deck that I can't control.
I'm going to replace the word. For mine.
Sorry, you can.
Yeah.
Go, Reapzy.
So
It's like a giant fire hose out of control.
It is 2 things, but I think they're very similar. It is the how was it? I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but basically crossplay. In terms of the fact that you no longer have to own this specific console to play with your friends. It is now all-encompassing where you can have any type of console or a PC and log on and play the same game in the same lobby. I think that's absolutely sick. And because of that, I also see different franchises from different companies going into other franchises because they're more lenient with their IPs now going out there, which I absolutely adore. Now, people were like, what are you talking about? Look at Fortnite in terms of they just put everything. They've got Marvel characters. They've got freaking Rick and Morty and stuff. Like the IPs that can basically create these other worlds or the skins or whatever it is that you want. I think it's sick that it's no longer you have to play X game to play as X thing. You can now do it on different games and things like that. And it also shows that there is a collaboration that can happen in the future. I mean, this is a terrible example, but obviously when it was like Sonic and Mario teaming up for the first time, you're like, oh my God, what the fuck? This is insane. I never thought this day would come. And it seems
Fall
like
Guys is a good example too.
Yeah.
Fall Guys is like a really big example, especially for both your points. Crossplay being that any platform that has it plays together, and also look at all the different IPs involved in it. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's it. I think that when we're seeing the walls break down of like people being so, this is my baby, you've got to buy this to play it, to now being like, yes, you can use it, but be sure to give, this amount of credit. And if you can use this, we can use that from yours. I like that is now becoming more the norm, where we are seeing that traversal of different worlds and characters going into other realms. And they may not be the greatest, I'm not saying that, but it's very cool that companies are talking to each other. It's not just big competition.
Well,
so yes.
Great example is Mario Rabbids. Fantastic strategy game. Absolutely brilliant. Especially the sequel, which very much improves over the first. No one saw that first game coming, completely blindsided everybody. And everyone's like, okay. And Ubisoft's making it, like, turned out to be such a hit. Was a really great, solid game.
And then the sequel is awesome as well.
Oh my goodness.
It was shocking.
Yeah, it is like biggest shock. Look, I'm going to say it. Like the Mario Rabbids games, best games that Ubisoft has released in the past few years. Hands down.
You don't like the 50th Assassin's Creed where you collect another 900 feathers and do the same shit over and over?
Shit. Anyway, sorry.
I dislike the recent Assassin's Creed because they shouldn't be called Assassin's Creeds. It's just person from history, like badass simulator. Like there's just barely any, like nothing Assassin's Creed about it. But then I heard there was a leak that apparently the next Assassin's Creed game is actually returning to its roots of the like, kind of first few actually being assassins.
I don't even want that. Just leave the good part, the good concept and the good stuff back where it was, right? Like just move on from everything at this point. Like, I don't know. I find that revisiting that stuff tends to make you go, crap, I hated it.
Yeah,
like I refused to buy the Spyro HD remakes because I loved Spyro so much and I don't want to play it on HD remakes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to revisit something I love, and I just feel like, I guess maybe also I just don't trust the Assassin's Creed franchise anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's fair. We'll say the Reignited trilogy is a beautiful like redo of like the original Spyro games. But no, I mean the thing is with Assassin's Creed is like they call it Assassin's Creed, and you're playing this game. I remember playing Origins, and there's a guy that's like only 4 levels higher than you. You can't assassinate him. Sorry. It's like, why?
You got to grind. You got to grind.
It's an RPG. You've got to level up.
Now you're the right level, but you haven't collected enough feathers.
Yep.
So
otherwise they can see you. Yeah. I hate that shit.
So I think I've talked about on this podcast quite a lot all the different things I've enjoyed about gaming over the last like 6 or 7 months. And there's the stuff like the gameplay loops. I find there are a lot of devs who are learning what a good gameplay loop is. You're learning about how to do worlds better and stuff like that. But I think the thing I haven't really talked about much, because I think it has a barrier for entry, which sucks for a lot of people, but I'm loving how the pandemic has really put a big focus on co-op again. Like, I think co-op has always been an underlying agreement or an underlying concept people have focused on. But I really think because of the way the pandemic hit us all, it meant that a lot of people have realized how much we love not just big multiplayer fighting each other, but we love playing games together.
Yeah.
Right? And I think so many genres you wouldn't expect have started adding little co-op here and there. They've added it really nicely as well. You know what I mean? And like Scarlet and Violet coming out in 3 days is a great example of that. Like the entire game could be played co-op if you guys didn't know, which is like, so you can just enter the other person's world and play along with them, right?
Which is what.
But a big shout out for this that I want to talk about is it's been out for ages technically, but it's only officially come out recently because of the final chapters. But Raft. I played Raft entirely offline with 3 friends, and it was just such a fun experience, right? And the story, a lot of people skip on it, right? And I talked about it a little bit in my Discord, and I had people be like, isn't Raft just like some sit on a raft in the big open space? Looks kind of boring. And it's like, no, it's so much more than that, right? Like, there's an entire world, an entire story is built. You come across these amazing environments and worlds where you follow the story. And as you progress, you can discover different types of islands and biomes. And there's like, while you're on this raft, just hanging out with your 3 mates, building a house on it or building a new fishing net or whatever you're doing, there can just be a fucking whale. Yeah. It's in the middle of the night, this quiet, nice music. You just sat there talking to your mates. Maybe you got a lemon lime bitters, and you're just relaxing, right? And then this big whale just surfaces next to you and and it's like, it's just such a. And I find that there's more and more of that lately. Like I mentioned, Back 4 Blood was another one that a very different genre, but I just find that I'm loving this kind of rediscovery and returning to the co-op roots that we are having. And And I love it, you know? Like the Phasmo one was a big part of that in the pandemic. And people realized how much they love it. So they did things like Devour, right? Which I played Devour on stream once or twice. It was fun, but it was way more fun with 3 mates in that lobby screaming our asses off while being chased down by a fucking giant spider woman, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's mine. Like this last year, I look at my games and I'm like, I've played so many amazing co-op or multiplayer games with people. Like Destiny 2, I think one of the major reasons I love it is because I'm playing it with like my best mates and we're out there doing things. Like last night, we ran in Destiny 2 what's called legendary dungeons, which are they're really difficult, but they're not super difficult. And just playing it with your mates is like a really fun challenge. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think that's a lovely resurgence and a fantastic resurgence that I've loved in the past year.
You're right. And I think a lot of people will be like, you mean multiplayer? No, co-op, I think is the big key term where you actually are with people doing the same mission. And that was another big reason why it's kind of like, I wish there are more games that are PvE. You know what I mean? Because at the moment it is all just like PvP. It's all just like shooters, blah, 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 blah.
That's why I love Played Up with you.
Yeah. It was so much fun. Yeah.
Well, I think
because you're just playing with friends.
I think that's what that was obviously what like the biggest hit for Hazelight Studios with A Way Out and It Takes Two, whereas like it's designed to be a forced co-op experience, but hey, you only have to buy 1 copy of the game because we're forcing you to play with someone else, which is obviously which is fantastic. And like they were like really, really interesting games. I loved both of those games. And I think, and obviously, I hope he continues. Like they make more of those types of games, or maybe we see like someone else try that style, because gaming is always going to be more fun, together. Like there's you're gonna have your experiences that are only solo, and you're gonna love it. Breath of the Wild, for example. But I think with like the idea of taking an experience that is almost solo, but forcing you to play with someone else because that's how it's designed, but it's brilliant. Like it's purely designed around 2 people, so every puzzle's designed that way. The story's designed around it. I'd love to see more of it. So hopefully we see more in that direction.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just think that there's a lot of really good stuff. I think there's a lot of trash too. Like for example, I know we all enjoyed it as a content game. This goes back to what Reapz was saying earlier about content game versus non-content game. But Boomen was a great content game, but as an actual game, I don't think you'd have 4 mates play that offline. Really, you'd go play something that's much more dynamic and built, like Phasmo or Devour, right? But yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that I think that the current co-op space is just doing such amazing fun things. To be honest, which I just don't think we've seen since like the OG Left 4 Dead days.
Yeah, well, Ember, I haven't had a chance to play it, but you spoke very highly of Ember. Having played that.
Yeah, as like a 1 or 2 times with mates. That's a toughie one. Ember was really fun 1 or 2 times, but after the first few, you're like, oh, this is kind of the same thing each time. Doesn't really evolve. And I did really, really enjoy it, but at the same time, it's like, it's a stream game, not a game with friends. And I think I'm specifically talking about how, like Fall Guys, I would play Fall Guys offline with mates. Right? You know what I mean? Like I would load up Fall Guys with mates and just sit there and just talk mad shit. Right. And I think that's part of it, right? Is like this, like queuing up with friends and having something you can all play together and have a good time.
Like the good old Halo
Although
days.
there are single players though. Like I loved A Short Hike. Did you guys play A Short Hike?
I believe I did.
A Short Hike is I believe The Short Hike is the highest rated game on Steam. I'm pretty sure, at least. It took me 77 minutes to beat.
But I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, it took me about 70 minutes to beat, but I in no way did everything. In no way did I do everything. But it is such a fun little experience. It's kind of like Inside. It tells a story in a really nice way that you don't expect, not heavy-handedly. And I'm pretty sure it is maybe like $4, $5.
At the moment, it is $11.50 Australian, which is actually what I would like to say as another terrible thing when it comes to games is the difference we have to pay compared to overseas. And I know people are going to be like currencies, blah, 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 blah. But it used to be the excuse of, when it was like an American game, it was like $60, right?
Yeah.
But for an Australian, it was $100 because they're like, they've got to export it over here. No longer. Your digital games is still crazy amounts of money and you don't have to do anything. You just got to pay for a server. Why the fuck are we paying $120+ for Modern Warfare 2 and then over there it's like 60? Sorry. Anyway.
No, you're 100% right. Like, it is legitimately a major issue for Australian gamers. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things that happen on stream so often is I was criticizing what was that Bethesda game that was a reskin of Dishonor? It was literally just like Dishonored, and it was by the same game by same people by Arcane.
Oh, Deathloop?
Deathloop.
Oh, right.
And Deathloop was like 135 Australian dollars for... No, the base game was $100 and then the premium game was 135. And I said, why would I buy what looks like a shorter singular map that is pretty much like a direct reskin of Dishonor? Like, and no one can deny, like, literally the animations, if you put them side by side, were the same. A lot of the abilities are the same. I'm not trying to insult the devs. It's a cool new concept they've done, but it's not $130 or $100. And I was saying this on stream. People were like, LJ, it's 60. And I was like,
No.
guys, it's 60 British pounds or it's 60 American dollars.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this from someone who literally has to pay $100 for a game.
Yeah.
Like, I bought Scarlet for $60. Like, okay, so how is Scarlet is like a whole fucking new game, right? Compared to Arcane Studios reskinning Dishonored. I love Bethesda, but that they really hot.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, guys. It is currently for the just the base game, $99.95.
It's still $99.
Hey, if you want the deluxe edition though, man, $129.95.
The fact that it is still that price is honestly shocking. Because they've not added anything new to it.
So isn't that crazy? That's what really bugs me the most is digital games still upscaling for Australians. New Zealanders get it even worse than us, like by a few, like $10, $20. And I understand people be like, but American dollars is worth, $1.30 compared to your 70 cents Australian. Doesn't matter. Where I live, $1 is $1, right? Why am I paying this crazy amount just to make up the different mass from overseas? And that drives me away from buying a game because I don't have $100 to drop on a game, Why would I? That's just such a waste for me. Unless it's the be-all, end-all game, maybe I'll consider it, but I'm not going to pay $130 for a deluxe digital edition, which gives me an extra gun skin or whatever it is in the OST. Fuck that noise. It's so ridiculous, and you need to bring down your prices because you'll get a lot more sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Even talking about you were talking earlier about the cosmetics Reapz and how expensive they are. It was like they could just, if they just make them a bit, like make them that like a cost what they should be. Make them a lot cheaper. They shouldn't be paying $20 per skin. You should be paying like $5, maybe $3.
And I'll drop that. I will get for sure $5. That's
also,
a coffee for the day.
Make sure there's a grindable currency as well.
Yeah.
Let's be 100% spot on here in the sense that you can't make it so that these legendary skins cost $30. Well, you know what? If it costs $30, I should be able to grind up or play certain things so that I'm able to take that on myself. Like I shouldn't have to spend money 100%. Anyone should be able to get anything they want free entirely. Otherwise, let's be real, it's just kind of like there's no encouragement anyway, to be honest.
Yeah.
It is crazy because there's the battle passes where you can get skins within the battle passes because of your grinding and stuff like that. And you get some sort of in-game currency, but nowhere near enough to pay for the $20 skins. And then you've got the separate store. So you got your battle pass store with these skins, and then you got a separate store with these skins. So all up after the battle pass and the skins, you're paying like $60 more a month just to get all the skins per month. And I understand business perspective. I get it. Obviously, it's a free-to-play game. You want the money, right? But no shot. I don't even see the skin when I'm in first-person mode. I don't give a shit about my emotes. I'm not going to be emoting. It's what a great skin that is, eh?
Destiny has this issue.
Yeah.
Like, I love Destiny 2, but it has this issue with... And you need the battle pass. If you don't buy the battle pass, you don't unlock, like... There's exclusive content, which is awesome, but also it's like, okay... Come on, please. Like, you don't need to hit us with this.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah, it's frustrating.
Anyway.
I want to change pace a little bit, and I want to shed light on a game that I like for anyone who does love indies, and like this game is such a great little indie game that got reviewed very well. It's called The Sexy Brutale or The Sexy Brutale, depending on your pronunciation.
This is the porno you mentioned a few weeks ago. You brought this up on stream.
Briefly. But it came out in 2017, very, very, very well reviewed. And unlike like Deathloop has a time loop mechanic, but it's a much more interesting one. This is like it's a puzzle sort of adventure where you play a character who and like you're all guests. You're all guests at this casino mansion, and you're invited there. But the staff are trying to kill all of the guests, right? Including you. The game literally starts with you dying. But you get kind of, say you kind of get this, like your character gets this power where you kind of can relive the same day, and you manage to break yourself out of the loop, and you kind of go through and are trying to figure out what the hell's going on and trying to help the other guests as well. It is a brilliant game that has some deep, like emotional experiences with it as well. It's like towards the end, absolutely. I can't talk too much about it because it starts to spoil it, but it is. It's like $29 Australian on Steam, and it'll probably go on sale with the Steam sales as well. It's one of those little indie puzzle experiences that's really, really well done. In terms of taking a time loop mechanic and making it really interesting, but telling an interesting story as well.
Nice. I'm not going to be that person, but I have to be that person. Is that we're currently a little bit into the podcast at the moment.
We do need to wrap it up. We're not going to do any questions today because questions are mostly about content creation, and we wanted to try a little experimental episode. But I think please do comment down below what your games are. And I was thinking maybe for our live stream, we might just sit here live and go through all of the game nominations and talk some mad smack. If you'd like that, throw a comment, let us know. If you're listening on the Spotify and stuff because you hate our faces, that's totally fine. And we will see you guys next week, if that's all right.
Of course. Yes. And I'm gonna put some polls. So the polls will be live right now as you're viewing this or listening to this episode. So go vote in the polls. What games that we suggested did you like the most? Let us know.
Is that on YouTube and Twitter?
I will do it on both. Yes.
Okay. And again, from all of us, thank you for the 1,000 subs. That is crazy, and we really do appreciate it. And because of that, as Eljay said, as Nick said, we're going to do a live episode probably in December. So stay tuned.
Easy done.
Either way, I'll catch you guys next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.